We're excited to have you with us for the Restart a Heart Day live event. We'll be starting soon. Welcome to the Restart a Heart Day live event. We'll be starting soon. We're excited to have you with us for the Restart a Heart Day live event. We'll be starting soon. Thanks for joining us for the Restart a Heart Day live event. We'll be starting shortly. We're excited to have you with us for the Restart a Heart Day live event. We'll be starting soon. Five minutes until the Restart a Heart Day live event. Thanks for joining us for the Restart a Heart Day live event. We'll be starting shortly. We're excited to have you with us for the Restart a Heart Day live event. We'll be starting soon. Welcome to the Restart a Heart Day live event. We'll be starting soon. Two minutes until the Restart a Heart Day live event. One minute until the Restart a Heart Day live event.
You can help save a life in 3 simple steps. Can we get you to a 1A cardiac arrest, please?
Approximately 30,000 Australians suffer an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest every year.
Of these, only 1 in 10 will survive.
Someone in cardiac arrest will be unconscious and not breathing normally.
We know this can be really scary, but there are some things you can do to help while we're on our way.
You can help save a life in 3 simple steps.
Call 000.
Push hard and fast in the centre of the chest.
Shock using a defibrillator, also known as an AED, if there is one available.
Turn it on and listen to the instructions. It's safe and easy to use.
If you're not sure how to do CPR, that's okay. The 000 call taker will guide you through it.
I'm here to help.
I am here to help.
I am here to help.
We're working together to save lives.
We're working together to improve survival rates. We need you to be part of our team.
Together we can save lives.
Remember, seconds count in cardiac arrest.
Call, push, shock.
Welcome to Restart a Heart Day 2020. My name is David Waters and I'm the Chief Executive of the Council of Ambulance Authorities representing emergency ambulance services across Australia, New Zealand and Papua New Guinea. Restart a Heart Day is now a global activity and we're proud to be part of that program. We've been celebrating Restart a Heart Day in Australia and New Zealand for the last 4 years and we're really excited to bring you the 2020 program. Unfortunately, due to COVID, this is a virtual Restart a Heart Day. Normally we would be out there with you practicing CPR and how to use an AED. But instead we're bringing you a program which will highlight the new techniques in CPR and using an AED and bring to you some expert speakers on the topic. The key messages for Restart a Heart Day are call, push, shock. Call 000 in Australia or 111 in New Zealand and Papua New Guinea. Push on the chest as hard as you can, about 100 to 110 compressions a minute. And remember, if you can access an AED or someone can get an AED for you, use the AED and shock the patient's heart back into rhythm. A quick run through of the events today. We're going to bring to you a number of video clips. We're going to be demonstrating CPR. We're going to be showing you how to use an AED. We have important messages from the Governor-General of Australia and the Governor-General of New Zealand. We're also going to hear from a number of experts in the ambulance sector about how cardiac arrest and heart attacks are different. And we're going to hear about some of the latest research. We've also got a kids corner where we're going to talk about resuscitation for children. I want to thank the ambulance services of Australia, New Zealand and Papua New Guinea for supporting Restart a Heart Day once again. I also want to thank the Governor-General of Australia and the Governor-General of New Zealand. Thank you for your support of this program and your patronage. And finally, I want to thank our sponsors and other supporters who assist us in bringing this program to you annually. Thank you.
We wanted to share with you some survival stories of how quick actions using CPR and AED can truly save a life.
To think that I'm 22 and I could have died when it happened, and there's no way I would have been happy with all the things I did. So I was just playing soccer with my friends at the indoor soccer place that we normally go to. I don't actually remember what happened. I don't have any memory, but my friends have told me. I came off the field. Apparently I was just leaning forward with my eyes open. Obviously things weren't normal. I collapsed.
We were all very stressed and really worried.
Taryn, are you okay?
Apparently I stopped breathing.
Can you hear me? Guys, he's not breathing.
As soon as he wasn't breathing, I knew what to do, so I just had to do it straight away.
I've got to start CPR.
Taryn wasn't responding at all.
Then that's when I decided to call 000.
We need an ambulance.
Can you go get the defib?
If the sports clinic didn't have the defibrillator, I probably would have died. The CPR works, but you need the defibrillator early.
A friend went to get the defib and we got it pretty quickly. We opened it and followed the instructions straight away.
apply pads to patient's bare chest.
The instructions were really easy to follow and there was lots of pictures and diagrams and the voice told you what to do in real time.
Analyzing. Stay clear of patient. Shock advised. Shock delivered. Begin CPR.
A couple of times while we were doing compressions, he started breathing on his own again, and we put him in the recovery position, and maybe 5 seconds, and then he would stop breathing again.
We're always hopeful and tend to see a better response when people have good bystander CPR prior to our arrival. When people do receive early CPR and defibrillation, it does increase their chance of survival. Anyone that doesn't receive it, obviously their chances of survival decreases.
I did 30 compressions and then I started the rescue breaths, and I think I did about 3 rounds before someone stepped in to take over compressions, and then I counted his compressions and did the rescue breaths.
It's important people feel confident and comfortable to start CPR. A lot of people think that it's difficult. It's a really simple skill, and we always say any CPR is better than no CPR. Even if you're unsure that you're doing it right, we always recommend that people do try. People's lives are at risk.
So I think if this happened to you and you didn't have any training, I think you should call 000 straight away, have a go at doing some compressions and send someone to look for a defib.
I was so happy and grateful because I knew that from what I was told by everyone, they did like an amazing job and they did everything so quickly.
Any cardiac arrest that we get back is great, and to see him walking around today is excellent.
I think I've heard statistics like only 1 in 10 people survive a cardiac arrest, and that brain damage is very common, but because they did CPR so well and so quickly, it kind of saved not just me, but also my brain.
The plane was a bit late getting in. It's a fairly long way to walk, and Laurie went a bit fast.
My head started feeling a little woozy, and then I don't remember a thing. Gone. Yeah.
Straight away, a man came in and started resuscitation. I realised then that he had died. And Laurie was away a lot. I just accepted the fact that he would go and be home when he was ready, because that's what we were doing for a living.
We were building something up for the boys, having something for them to carry on. Sometimes family was suffered by that, and that hurt. But you get to the retired stage and you have time to be with those kids. You have time to be with your wife. You have time to be where you should be in a family, yes.
Thank you, SA Ambulance Service. What is the exact address of the emergency?
Adelaide Airport.
Thank you. Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
An older gentleman just fell on the ground. He did that. They're working on him now doing CPR.
They're doing CPR?
Yes.
And is there any serious bleeding?
Yep.
Is there a defibrillator available?
Yeah, they're doing.
All right.
Everyone clear.
Okay, the machine will tell you what to do. Follow its instructions.
Delivering shock.
Did they shock him?
Shock delivered.
Okay, so is he breathing?
The next thing I knew, I was in the vehicle, and the things that kept going in my mind was my family. Gwen, where is she?
I'm so grateful that Laurie was revived and that he is here today. He has been very good to me over these years and good to our family.
And now the reward is here, that David and his son are operating the 15 trucks now. Everyone working together and bring it into fruition. Yeah.
I was playing soccer and I felt really dizzy.
My legs just gave out from under me.
I was turning blue and I had no pulse.
And then I had a cardiac arrest.
They tried to revive me and they couldn't.
Someone got a defib.
And started CPR.
The defibrillator restarted my heart.
If those guys hadn't been there, or if they hadn't been able to get a defib, I wouldn't have survived, that's for sure.
One of the Council of Ambulance Authorities board members speaks about why Restart a Heart Day is important to her personally.
Every year, 30,000 Australians die from sudden cardiac arrest. But do you know how you can help that figure improve? For every minute sooner that you start CPR or apply an automatic external defibrillator, an AED, you increase the chance of survival of a person from sudden cardiac arrest by 10%. An ambulance's average response time to a sudden cardiac arrest from the time you call 000 to the time they arrive is 8 minutes across Australia. We need your help to start CPR, to use an AED before we get there, to increase someone's chance of survival. In a community where they have an AED available, the chance of someone's survival from sudden cardiac arrest increases to 70% just by having an AED available. I want to tell you why it's so important to me that people learn CPR and why it's so important to me that community groups and businesses have an AED available. It's important to me not just because I'm a paramedic and not just because I'm the CEO of an ambulance service, but it's important to me and it's important to my family because of my aunt. My aunt was always a little unwell. She had a range of medical conditions, but she was stoic about it all and she put up with a lot. So when she started to get short of breath, working around the house or trying to get to the letterbox, she didn't worry about it. She just made an appointment with the GP to get it sorted. On the day that she was heading off to the GP, she let one of her brothers know. But there was no worry or concern because she was off to the GP to get it sorted. And on the way, she went to the shopping centre. When she got to the shopping centre, she started to realise she was in trouble. She started to feel quite short of breath. She struggled with her walking and she developed chest pain. So she went to the chemist for help because they knew her and because she thought they would know what to do. My aunt died on the floor of that chemist. Nobody knew CPR and nobody had an AED. They had called 000 and they called security and a guard came and she died in the arms of that security guard on the floor. By the time the ambulance got there, it was too late. The paramedics did all that they could and they performed all the extraordinary measures that they could, but no one had started CPR and no one had got an AED. My aunt was 65 and my family were devastated. That security guard was devastated and we went back to him after the funeral because we heard he was having trouble coping and we reassured him that it was okay and we were okay and we were grateful that he was there with her. But what if somebody in that chemist had known how to perform CPR or had gotten an AED? What difference would that have made to my aunt and to my family? So I urge you all, you could sit here and tell a story like mine about your aunt or your parents or your sibling, Or you could learn CPR. You could learn what to do in the event of a sudden cardiac arrest, and you could save the life of your family or somebody else's family. So I urge you, pick up the phone today and book a course and learn CPR. And learn what it means to call, push, shock. Call 000, push on someone's chest, and use an AED to shock them back to life. Restart a Heart Day is so important in raising awareness about how you can help us to save lives. So I urge you all to learn CPR and to learn how to use an AED. On Restart a Heart Day, start working with us to save lives.
Would you know what to do when somebody suffers a cardiac arrest? Thankfully, the team from Ambulance Victoria is on hand today to show you.
Knowing CPR is one of the most important things you can do to look after your family and friends. That's because most cardiac arrests happen at home. And when bystanders like you take action, the survival rate doubles.
We know that CPR can seem scary or stressful, so we're going to talk you through how to do it in just a couple of minutes. Keep in mind that when you call 000, the call taker will tell you what to do and send us straight away. But knowing what to do before we arrive makes all the difference. With cardiac arrests, seconds count, and it's up to all of us to know what to do to save a life.
So, grab a pillow or a call push shock kit if you have one, and a space on the floor, and let's get started. Over to you, Jess.
When it comes to responding to a cardiac arrest, we can break it down into 3 simple steps: call, push, shock.
Okay, the first step is to recognise that when someone is unconscious and not breathing normally, they may be in cardiac arrest, and you need to call 000 immediately. Cardiac arrest means the heart has stopped beating normally and immediate action is needed. So call 000, put it on loudspeaker, and the call taker will talk you through how to do CPR. They might ask you to check the patient's breathing, but at this point, the most important thing for you to do is to just call 000 immediately.
Alright, the second step is to push. Push hard, push fast. And there's no need for you to do mouth to mouth anymore. Just use your hands. If there's someone else with you, take it in turns doing CPR. Swap every 2 minutes, as it's really tiring. You'll need to continue these compressions until we arrive and take over.
Here's a few things to keep in mind as you're doing compressions. Put the person on the floor if possible, not a couch or bed. Kneel next to their chest, with your knees about shoulder width apart. Put the heel of your hand in the middle of the chest, directly between the nipples. Place your other hand on top and lock your fingers together, like this. Try and keep your fingers off the chest. This will keep your weight on the right part of your hand. Lean over the chest with your arms straight and elbows locked. Push down 1/3 of the depth of the chest and let the chest rise back up before pushing down again. To get the right speed, you can use the song Staying Alive by the Bee Gees, or Row, Row, Row Your Boat, or even Baby Shark as a reference.
Basically, you want to be doing about 2 compressions per second. Join along with me. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream.
Don't let fear get in the way. Try and stay calm. Do what you can, and remember that when it comes to CPR, any CPR is better than no CPR.
Alright, we've covered how to call and push. Now let's tackle the shock component. When we say shock, we're talking about an AED or a defib machine.
AEDs are in a lot of shopping centres, schools and public places. Knowing where your nearest AED is super important.
There are many types of AEDs in the community. This is just one variety, but they're all just as easy to use. Just keep a lookout for this sign.
So, if you're nearby to one, or someone can grab one for you, here's what to do. Turn it on and follow the instructions. That's it. AEDs are totally safe for anyone to use. They analyse the patient's heart and only deliver a shock when needed. You don't need training to use one, and there's an automated voice that will tell you what to do. Some of the things it'll tell you are to remove their top,
Remove clothes from patient's chest.
where to put the pads,
Apply pads to patient's bare chest.
when to move away from the patient,
Shock advised. Stay clear of patient.
and when to keep doing compressions.
No shock advised. Begin CPR.
So there you have it. Call, push, shock. Call 000 immediately. Push hard and fast between the nipples and shock if an AED is available.
Remember, when you call 000, the call taker will tell you exactly what to do, and we'll be on our way as quickly as possible.
Thanks for joining Jess and me today to learn CPR and how to use an AED.
These are two of the most important things you can possibly do to keep your loved ones safe. Take care.
Using an AED or a defibrillator is completely safe. AEDs have built-in instructions that will guide you in how to use them and when to deliver a shock. The AED monitors the patient's heartbeat and will only deliver a shock when it's safe.
We hear from people who responded to those around them suffering a cardiac arrest, on what it felt like and what the experience entailed.
I knew instantly that something was very wrong. Very wrong.
Cardiac arrests are experienced across all population groups.
But when someone has a cardiac arrest, they stop breathing.
And I just grabbed my husband and my son and held on really tight because it wasn't my family member that was going through that.
He went like a strange grey colour that I just thought was really odd.
You've got to do something, you can't do nothing.
So you're going to have to compress the chest fairly hard. If you hear some cracks, carry on.
We don't want to scare people, but these are the realities of life.
The idea that you can swallow your tongue during CPR really is a myth.
Everybody's tongue is a different length. Some people can put their tongue out and touch their nose. Others have a little short tongue. The tongue can slip back. You can't swallow your tongue.
I remember looking in his mouth once when I could get it open and thinking, what am I supposed to do with the tongue?
The tongue can fall back in the mouth, but it cannot be swallowed.
I wasn't worried about anything like that. I mean, we could feel and see the breath going in, so as long as that was the case, we were fine, but we were certainly checking the airways.
And it doesn't pose a significant risk to these patients.
Well, I remember the triple O operator saying, "Is he breathing?" And I was saying, yes, he's making a noise, but I think now, with what I know, I realise that was probably just, part of what happens when someone stops breathing.
There is definitely a gurgling noise and sort of a groaning noise that will come up from the chest. It's a scary noise, and it'll shock you and it'll frighten you when you hear it.
When you're performing chest compressions on a patient, it is quite a rigorous procedure, and some patients can make some sounds, or as you're pressing on their chest you can force some air out of their lungs, which can make some unusual sounds in the patient's mouth.
And he made some really horrible noises when the son was performing the breaths as well, like an awful balloon, like air coming out of a balloon. It was awful.
Again, you should not be put off by those sounds. It's a normal occurrence in cardiac arrest.
A lot of you might wonder what the difference is between a cardiac arrest and a heart attack. Dan Rose from St John, Western Australia will explain the difference and how you can tell the symptoms apart.
Good morning everybody from an uncharacteristically overcast day here in Perth, WA. Anyway, I'm here to talk to you a little bit about cardiac arrest and heart attack. So heart attacks, what are they all about? Well, it's about this, our hearts, sitting in the center of our chest, working away 24/7, giving us life. Now heart attacks are probably best described as mostly being a plumbing problem. All of the vessels that you see on the heart here over the years are subject to fatty deposits that start to build up and narrow the amount of space that blood has to get past. Let's take a look. So here we have a model heart, and let's talk about heart attack in a little more context. If you remember back to your biology days, you remember that there's two chambers at the top, the atria, and two chambers at the bottom, the ventricles. The pictured vessels here are just a demonstration of how important it is that the heart gets its own uninterrupted blood supply. And the fatty deposits that I was talking about that build up over the years start to occlude and narrow these vessels. And once an occlusion begins to manifest itself, say in here, any of the muscle being fed from this part of the vessel begins to become oxygen deprived. This is typically experienced by the patient as being chest pain because this muscle is oxygen deprived. If we open the model up, you can just see how thick this muscle is. And it needs to be for the ventricles to be really efficient in sending blood around to the body. And in the early stages, just a little bit of muscle is affected. But as it persists, more and more and more of this muscle begins to become affected, and the heart doesn't work so efficiently. So with some clever technology, the interventional cardiologists are able to put a bit of dye into your bloodstream, and they send a wire down, identify the occlusion, open it up with a stent, and this part of the vessel begins to get blood flow back to it, which means all of these muscles start to get blood returned to it. So heart attack is a true medical emergency, and when these symptoms start to appear, that's why 000 is really important to call. So you've seen how complicated the heart is and how reliant it is to actually get really, really good blood supply. But how do these patients present when they're having a heart attack? Well, most typically people will complain of chest pain. It's the most common symptom that people have. And that's as a result of the heart muscle beyond the blockage in the vessel starting to tell you that it's being starved of a little bit of oxygen. Now what happens is these patients may also exhibit shortness of breath or feel a little bit nauseous. They might be pale and sweaty and feel a little bit faint or feeling like they want to pass out as well. It's quite a myriad of symptoms that the experienced clinician is able to join up together in the pursuit of finding a really good diagnosis. Now, of course, most ambulance services carry really comprehensive ECG machines, and it's about taking those comprehensive 12-lead ECGs that gives us the definitive proof of what might be going on with the patient. In most modern systems, there's access direct to the cardiac interventional cath lab, which is where stents may be inserted as a life-saving measure. This is far better for a patient than we used to do of days gone by of giving a clot-busting drug that carried quite a few side effects with it. So essentially, in summary, a heart attack is somebody who's usually awake, may be considerably unwell, pale, sweaty and nauseous with pain, and who's most likely got a blockage in one of their coronary arteries that needs urgent intervention. But of course, left untreated, this can proceed to the more significant and dangerous part, which is cardiac arrest, which is what we're going to talk about next. So cardiac arrest then, the main focus of Restart a Heart Day. These are patients who are not conscious and are not breathing, or at least they're not breathing normally. In the early stages of collapse, they may exhibit signs of seizure activity and may show breathing signs that might look deep and guppy-like. Whichever, they are in urgent need of medical attention. These are the people that require early CPR, and the benefit of an AED may be realized in quite a few of them. Ambulance services in most first world countries are subscribing to a high-performance CPR methodology. This means that we are really focused on quality chest compressions. We're really focused on being able to deliver defibrillation shocks through AEDs or our own monitors, and this is what gives a lot of people the best chance of survival in any situation. So what is cardiac arrest caused by? Well, of course, we've just talked about the heart attack victims with the blockage in their coronary artery. If left untreated, it's very common that these patients will then start to develop some kind of electrical conduction problems as the muscle is no longer able to function properly, and that eventually leads into the ability for the electrical system of the heart to tell the heart to pump effectively, and essentially the heart stops. And of course, not all cardiac arrest victims have a preceding event such as chest pain or indeed have a clot in one of their arteries. The young and fit amongst us are just as at risk of sudden cardiac arrest as the next person. Some of us may have a congenital predisposition to having an electrical malfunction under exertion in our hearts. Most typically, these are recognized as being people under exertion on sports fields and in gymnasiums. And these are the kind of cases that tend to make international headlines. Some of you may have remembered the international coverage of a footballer in the United Kingdom called Fabrice Muamba. And it was rarely when he had a cardiac arrest that young, fit people having these events caught worldwide attention. This is where AEDs come in and the importance of AEDs, because what this AED does is it temporarily stuns all of that errant electrical activity, and it tries to create and restore some order. So from a professional ambulance point of view, you can see behind me some of my colleagues, final year paramedic students going through their paces. Across Australia and New Zealand, we're spending a lot of time and effort trying to get out of hospital cardiac arrest management as right as possible. It's the next step to that important bystander intervention of early CPR and AED use, and increases the likelihood of survival as best as we can. We ask them to do the basics really well. Exceptionally good chest compressions, defibrillate the patient, manage airway and ventilation with focus, but more than that, we ask them to adopt a really great communication and leadership stance. So that's it from us here in WA, folks. Remember, call 000, push hard and fast on the chest, but not too fast, and use an AED wherever possible. To save a life is to save the world. I'm going in, it's raining. Cut.
Cardiac arrest doesn't care if you're young or old, fit, an athlete. It doesn't discriminate, as you'll see from these survivor stories.
Call, push and shock. That is the vital message for anyone trying to restart a heart. Echoed today by a man who was brought back to life after he was dead for almost 10 minutes. Every year, thousands of people suffer heart attacks, but life-saving help is usually nearby if people follow simple steps.
Healthy and fit, Noel Pereira was looking forward to running his first half marathon this time a month ago. But 200 metres from the finish line, his heart stopped for 9 minutes.
I died, and here I am, I'm alive.
Fortunately, the 37-year-old had help nearby, today reuniting with his heroes.
Eternally grateful that I was saved by the right people at the right time.
Could have been a very different case if we were a matter of another couple of 100 metres away.
More than 8,000 people suffer heart attacks out of hospital every year across the state, but only 12% survive. On Restart a Heart Day, the message to the community is to call, push and shock.
Call the ambulance if they see an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. Push on the patient's heart by following the instructions from an emergency medical call taker, and to shock the heart if there's a publicly available defibrillator.
The biggest barrier to effective CPR is that people think they're doing more harm, but experts stress anything is better than nothing, even if you break a rib while doing so. As for Noel, he now wants to learn CPR and get back to running. Catalin Flores for 10 News First.
So I'm away home from work, cycling along Guildford Road on the cycle path there. Started feeling tired and then black. Blacked out. The signal from my heart to my head had been disconnected and it stopped my heart. I was saved, luckily, by the St John's ambulance that were driving past at the time. If I was at home at the time, I would have been dead. There's no doubt about it. Is that it doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, it doesn't discriminate on anybody, and it can actually happen at any time.
I started off reasonably early. We're going to move the 4 steers. I'm standing out there on the side of the road and without any issues whatsoever, just dropped dead.
Everything seemed to be going well and we looked up and suddenly Graham was on the ground.
When I saw him lying there, I thought, well, he's dead. I realised it was up to me to do something, even though it had been a long time since I'd done a CPR course.
We've got an elderly gentleman collapsed. He's not responsive.
You're doing CPR?
Yeah, he's not, doesn't have a pulse.
Okay, is he breathing?
No, he's not.
Okay, we're organising you some help right now, okay? Just bear with me there one moment.
You know, a few minutes in, it was obvious that she was getting tired, so I took over from there. We had Triple O on the speakerphone, and she was able to direct us to do exactly the right things. And it seems like we followed her directions well, looking at the results.
The ambulance people are here now. They just cut his shirt off, and we're still doing CPR.
Okay, sir, I'm going to pass it on to the paramedics now. You've done such an amazing job.
So Jeanette and Ken were doing CPR when we arrived. Because of them, Graham was able to survive the 11 minutes before we arrived, and they've essentially saved his life.
I've never met Graham before, but it was really important that he didn't die. They don't really think much beyond that. There's someone who needs help and you give help.
I'm just so blessed to be alive. Back here on the farm, enjoying life, enjoying the sunshine. It's just like a new lease for me.
Every year in Australia, over 23,000 people will have a cardiac arrest outside of hospital. Only 1 in 10 of these people will survive. With your help, we can do better. We can save more lives with 3 simple steps. Call, push, shock. You don't have to be specially trained to save a life. Call 000. The sooner you call, the sooner help will arrive.
What is the location of the emergency?
You'll be asked some questions by staff over the phone. These questions are important and won't delay help.
I can talk you through CPR.
Push. Start chest compressions by pushing down on the centre of the person's chest, hard and fast. Aim for a rate of 2 compressions per second. Start this as soon as possible. Don't worry that you might hurt the person. You could save their life. Shock. Send someone to collect the nearest AED if there is one nearby, but don't stop chest compressions to get it. To use, simply turn on the AED machine and follow the instructions.
Analyzing. Stay clear of patient. Shock advised. Shock delivered. Begin CPR.
Don't stop chest compressions until instructed to do so. Call 000, push hard and fast, and shock. Remember, 3 simple steps can save a life. Early intervention can make a big difference.
I was playing soccer and I felt really dizzy.
My legs just gave out from under me.
I was turning blue and I had no pulse.
And then I had a cardiac arrest.
They tried to revive me and they couldn't.
Someone got a defib.
And started CPR.
The defibrillator restarted my heart.
If those guys hadn't been there, or if they hadn't been able to get a defib, I wouldn't have survived, that's for sure.
You might be afraid of what to do or that you might hurt somebody who's suffering a cardiac arrest. Let's see how people who have responded to cardiac arrest face these fears.
So there were 3 family members and they were all, from what I assume, they were all his children. And they were in their late teens, maybe early 20s. And so hysterical. It was so awful to see because they were so worried about him.
It's almost always the case that family members or bystanders become distressed during an incident like this.
His family were with him. And they were obviously very distressed with what had occurred. I instantly jumped down and I assessed that he wasn't breathing and he didn't have a pulse. And at that stage, I said, somebody ring 000. And I said, and please, somebody take the family.
We encourage people that are distressed to move away. If it's at a private residence or at a facility, perhaps they could wait in another room away from the visually disturbing incident. It's not something that anyone wants to see, and if you can avoid people's exposure to that, especially young children, that's preferable.
The most confronting part of the whole experience was putting your hands in someone's mouth who was very unwell. That was really confronting.
A number of patients, when in cardiac arrest, can have some clenching of their jaw. That's generally the result of low oxygen.
It was really hard trying to get my finger in because his jaw was so locked, and when you haven't experienced that involuntary locking sensation, it's really quite unnerving. But it's just the body doing what it knows.
There is a way of releasing the jaw that you just put a little bit of pressure underneath here and you sort of pull it and you can usually get the jaw to open a little bit.
What we would encourage you to do is roll that patient onto their side. Where it's safe to do so, remove any food or dentures from their mouth and then place them back on their back in order for you to start chest compressions.
Yes, so he was warm and like I said, he went like a strange grey colour that I just thought was really odd.
He did feel cold and he did look grey.
When a patient's heart stops beating, it doesn't take long for their body to start cooling down. It doesn't take long for their skin to become pale or white or blue or grey. He
was white initially and then he sort of went into like a grey and then blue.
If a patient is cold, or grey or blue, you should still commence chest compressions.
And I just remember doing CPR over the bath and doing chest compressions. But it was really confronting that when I had started doing CPR, his colour started to change and he went from that purple colour to a normal colour.
You've got to do something, you can't do nothing. My regrets about my scenario, I think would be tenfold had I done nothing.
You know what? If you're not scared, there's something wrong with you. Truly.
The person's going to have a better chance of survival by giving it a go at least.
You're keeping the person alive, which is the first and foremost thing about CPR, is that you're keeping oxygen to their brain and keeping them alive. I think as long as anyone just, throws all of your reservations aside and just dives in and attempts to start compressions, that's better than nothing, surely.
You're not going to do this person any harm. Anything you do is going to be helpful.
It will be confronting. It is demanding. It's an exhausting activity. It can result in some minor injuries to the patients, but these patients' life literally hang in the balance. And if you don't provide CPR at all, they will surely die. So some CPR is better than nothing at all.
Unfortunately, in the litigious world in which we live in, I think that probably does jump into people's heads, but rest assured, you're not going to be held accountable.
It went through my head very quickly, the thought that what if I'm doing the CPR wrong? What if it doesn't work? But I had to try anyway. You have to try anyway.
I definitely sort of thought after, is anyone going to ring me and say, hey, what did you do and what have you done and where are you? And yeah, so in all states of Australia, I think they term it the Civil Liabilities Act, but it's generally termed the Good Samaritan Act. So it covers for people's actions when delivering first aid. No one's been sued for doing first aid.
And in actual fact, the law is very clear that you will not be held liable if you provide CPR to someone who is in cardiac arrest and who needs urgent medical attention.
The Council of Ambulance Authorities is grateful to have the Australian Governor-General support Restart a Heart Day for the second year running.
Would you know what to do if you came across someone suffering from cardiac arrest? It could be a family member, a friend, or someone you don't even know, lying unconscious, breathing irregularly. Each year, 30,000 Australians suffer an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. When they do, seconds count. How you respond could be the difference between life and death. When seconds count, all of us need to know the basics. Call, push, shock. Call 000. The operator will tell you what to do next. Push and start CPR. Push fast. You need 120 beats per minute. Push hard. Your compressions need to be 5 centimetres deep, and don't stop until you get a defibrillator or someone else takes over. And shock. A defibrillator sends an electric shock.
Shock delivered.
To get the heart back in rhythm. Call, push, shock. This is what Restart a Heart Day is all about. To make sure you know the basics if you find someone suffering cardiac arrest, and to make seconds count. It could be the difference between life and death.
It's been 60 years since the start of modern CPR, but do you know about its history? Let's find out. There's no doubt CPR saves lives. It's estimated that since modern CPR was introduced 60 years ago, more than 2 million lives have been saved. But how did CPR come about, and how can we increase the success rate? Let's go back to the beginning. In 1740, the Paris Academy of Science recommended mouth-to-mouth resuscitation for drowning victims. When it comes to chest compression, it wasn't until 1891 that Dr. Friedrich Maas performed the first documented chest compression. 14 years later, in 1903, Dr. George Cryle reported the first successful use of external chest compression to revive a patient. The next huge leaps forward for CPR came throughout the 1950s through various efforts. Dr. James Elam employed the technique of mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to successfully revive a boy dying of polio. Around the same time, another team of doctors realised that rescue breathing alone was not enough to restart a heart. Dr. Paul Zoll created the first external defibrillator and demonstrated for the first time in 1952 that when a human heart stops, it can be induced by externally applied electric stimulation to resume beating. Dr. Zoll's later studies showed that externally applied alternating current counter shocks are similarly effective in stopping ventricular fibrillation. Also contributing was the work of Dr. William Kalvenhoven, an electrical engineer who separately had helped play a role in the development of the defibrillator. First, in 1933, he and his colleagues confirmed the basic fact that an electric shock could reverse ventricular fibrillation in the heart. Second, he developed the devices for both open and closed chest defibrillation. And third, he originated the technique of external cardiac massage. While working on his defibrillator technique in the late 1950s, he and his colleagues unexpectedly found that pushing hard externally on the chest paddles could force blood to flow from the heart. And after further investigation, they found that external chest compressions were as effective as open heart massage. Eventually, the two research teams working on external compression and ventilation joined, and in 1960, they appeared together at a conference in Maryland. They announced that by combining their methods, they had created the first truly effective approach to resuscitation. History was made, and CPR was born. Also aiding in the advancement of CPR techniques was the Resusci-Anne mannequin, developed from 1958 and introduced as a training aid in 1960. She was created by Austrian-Czech physician Peter Safar and American physician James Elam, in collaboration with Norwegian toymaker Asmund Lærdal. The distinctive face of Resusci-Anne was based on La Carew de la Seine, the death mask of an unidentified young woman reportedly drowned in the River Seine around the late 1880s. When the pathologist at the morgue received her body, he was so mesmerised by her beauty that he ordered a plaster cast to be made of her face, and this is now the face who has trained over 300 million people in CPR. Like all medical practices, since then methods have continued to be reviewed and improved. We now have access to automated external defibrillators known as AEDs in places like shopping centres, airports and offices. These smart units can be used by anyone, even those without CPR training. They analyse the heart rhythm to determine if a shock is required, and if so, they talk the user through each step of the process. If you own or have access to an AED, make sure it's registered with your local emergency service to minimise the time it takes professional help to arrive. Furthering better cardiac arrest outcomes in recent years are organisations such as Good Sam. Founded in 2013, Good Sam uses modern technology to give emergency services the instant ability to locate and open any caller's mobile phone camera, and then alert registered, trained users if they're nearby and free to cardiac arrest so they can respond while an ambulance is en route. And ambulance services and other organisations are continually improving CPR practices and cardiac arrest outcomes. Led by Kings County and Seattle, the Resuscitation Academy and Global Resuscitation Alliance developed a 10-step program to help increase cardiac survival rates. Through the implementation of these programs in the American state of Washington, they have one of the highest cardiac arrest survival rates in the world, above 50%, compared with just 2% globally. In 2016, CAA ambulance services across Australia and New Zealand adopted the 10-step program and are already seeing great results. Numerous workshops and masterclasses have been held across Australia and New Zealand ambulance services, helping them deliver techniques for the program ranging from high-performance CPR, telephone CPR, establishing cardiac registries and more. In 2017, we saw the launch of the annual Restart a Heart Day campaign in Australia and New Zealand to raise awareness about out-of-hospital cardiac arrest and the importance of learning CPR and knowing how to use AEDs. Approximately 34,000 Australians and New Zealanders suffer an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest each year. Of those, only 1 in 10 survive. You can help save a life in 3 simple steps. Call, push, shock. Restart a Heart Day was launched across Australia and New Zealand back in 2018 on the lawns of the Australian Parliament by the Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison.
I am now honoured to introduce Prime Minister Scott Morrison, who has kindly given his time to help us raise awareness for the lives lost from sudden cardiac arrest, and in doing so help to save more lives. Prime Minister, welcome.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, David, and thank you, Paul, for your welcome to country, and can I add my acknowledgement to elders past and present. This is a very personal cause that brings me here today at a number of levels. In my own family, in just the past week, we've been dealing with this issue quite directly, and that goes on, and I want to extend, while maintaining the privacy of that situation, my best love and wishes to the family members who are affected by that, even as we speak, even in this last few hours. Can I also acknowledge, in addition to David and Tony and the others who've spoken, my brother's here, Al Morrison. He's a paramedic. Many of you might know my father was a policeman. Well, my brother's a paramedic. My brother-in-law was a fiery, so we've got the services pretty much covered off around the place. And some years ago, on the similar topic, I was down in Cronulla and I was experiencing some rather serious chest conditions, and the doctor called the ambulance, and the ambulance turns up and I jump in, I didn't jump in, they carried me into the back of the ambulance. I wasn't in the mood for jumping at all at the time. And my brother, who's paramedic and heading up the educational service in the New South Wales Ambulance Service, so well known in the ambulance service, I get in the back of this ambulance, and the 2 attending ambulance officers say to me, are you who we think you are? And I went, well, who do you think I am? They said, are you Al Morrison's brother? They were clearly very concerned not to be at rest on the job that day with Al. But this is an experience that some 25,000 Australians experience. I mean, that's the size of a town of around about Armidale or Alice Springs. That's a lot of Australians who are impacted by this every single year. And it's a very real risk, and it's a very real situation which Australians and their families and their loved ones and their friends and their work colleagues, or indeed people just walking by, may well find themselves in the situation where they're called upon to give assistance. And only 1 in 10 people survive a sudden cardiac arrest. In some cases where they're in a position to be close by to hospitals or other emergency services, then obviously that can improve. But for many, it could be anywhere, at any time, and it can claim lives, and it can rob loved ones from their families, friends, fathers, husbands, wives, grandparents, all in an instant. And every shred of evidence tells us that lives are saved when a witness to a cardiac arrest, a bystander, steps up to perform CPR, and if they can, use a defibrillator while an ambulance is on the way. And you know, sometimes too many of us are a bit scared to step in. I could stuff this up. I could make it worse. I wouldn't want to be responsible for that, and I can understand that. But what Tony and the rest of the team are really trying to get across to you today through this very important Restart a Heart Day is to build awareness and education that, and they tell me, believe me, they say, there's nothing you can do to make that situation worse. It's already pretty grim. And so you being able to step up and step in, I think, is an important thing for every Australian to do. In this country, it's one of our core values. We look after our mates. And when you're looking after your mates, you don't walk past, you don't walk by, and you step up and you do what you can, as I know so many Australians do. Now, 3/4 of sudden cardiac arrests occur in the home, so it's all important, we all know, adults and kids. I mean, how good are the stories when you hear of the kids who know this, and they call 000. Alan and my father once was overseeing the 000 centre there in Sydney many, many years ago. Now, kids ring in. What courage does that take? What initiative does that take? And that's a product of how parents have these discussions with their kids. And we have to have these discussions with our kids, because it may be you lying there on the floor while you're waiting for one of your kids to pick up the phone and call 000. So there are 3 things. Call the emergency number, 000. Start the CPR. Jump on and start going. Bang, 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 as hard as you can. And if you know how to do it properly, well, that's even better. And if you're a member of a surf lifesaving club, or you're a member of the St John's Ambulance, or there are many other opportunities where Australians can go and they can get that training and they can be on hand in circumstances like this. But to start the CPR, and where one is available, use a defibrillator, and if there is one, and to shock. And I've done that before, using in trials. The instructions are very easy to follow. You just read them, you compose yourself, you gather yourself, and you focus on what's right in front of you. Our ambulance officers and our medical health professionals and those attending on the scene do amazing things. They really do. And I respect them greatly. It's not just because my brother serves in that area that I have a special understanding of this, but one of the things that Al's always told me when I've asked him when he's attending some of the most horrific things on a scene, and those ambulance officers and others are there, they have to carry that around with them all the time, those images, what they're feeling at the time. And I've asked him, how do you deal with that? How do you focus at a time like this? And he says, you just deal with what's in front of you. You just focus on the job that you have. And I want to thank all of those ambulance officers and all of those who are providing these services all around the country. That focus, that discipline, that compassion, that care is what saves the lives. And we can all do it. Even I can. We can all do it if we step up and we do those 3 things. Call the emergency number, start the CPR, and use a defibrillator if there is one to shock. So many organisations are here and involved. Clubs, businesses, shops, communities, finding out how they can provide this assistance through the many organisations represented here. The CAA, their member services, supportive organisations including the Australian Resuscitation Council, and of course Martin and the Royal Flying Doctor Service, who the government is very pleased to support. St John's National, the Heart Foundation, they're all there doing their job. And we're backing them in to do that. And the best way all Australians can back them in to do that is just take this simple message, have this chat with your mates, have it with your families, have it with your kids, have it with those you're out and about with. And so if we do see it happen, you can step up and you can save a life. So I urge all Australians to learn how to restart a heart day, and very pleased to be here for this very important occasion, getting this message out. Thank you all very much. Cheers.
We urge you to join our team to help us save lives from cardiac arrest. Learn from the team at Wellington Free Ambulance, South Australian Ambulance Service, St John, New Zealand, and Zoll what to do in the case of a cardiac arrest.
Restart a Heart Day is about raising awareness and taking an opportunity to train and retrain in CPR. At Wellington Free Ambulance, it's our goal to make sure all our communities know how to do CPR. If someone has a sudden cardiac arrest, call 111 straight away and start CPR immediately. You'll know if they're in cardiac arrest because they'll be unconscious and they will not be breathing. The quicker you can engage, the greater the chance of their survival. We know that CPR works and we know that it saves lives.
A sudden cardiac arrest can happen to anyone at any time, which is why it's important that every New Zealander knows how to do CPR and how to use an AED. In fact, each week on average, 4 people suffer a cardiac arrest somewhere in the Greater Wellington and Wairarapa region. To second what Andy just said, the best way to increase somebody's chance of survival is for everyone in our community to know how to do CPR. When combined with the use of an AED, survival rates can increase up to 80%. When doing CPR, your job is to do what the heart is not doing, beating for itself and pumping blood around the body. That is why you must keep going and not stop.
From all of us at Wellington Free Ambulance, thanks for getting involved in this Restart a Heart Day.
Flying an aircraft is no walk in the park. When you've got people suspended in mid-air, there are just some things that are better left to the gifted and highly trained professional. But performing CPR is not one of them. Yeah, the new CPR is dead easy, and any attempt is better than no attempt. When someone's in trouble, think danger first and keep yourself and others safe at all times. Shout out to them. Are they responding? Are they breathing normally? If not, call 000 immediately. Then start hands-only CPR. Overlap your hands and aim smack bang in the centre of the chest. Now push hard and fast, about 5 centimetres down, 2 times a second. Keep it up until help arrives or you just can't go any longer. It's not aeroscience. If someone's not responding or breathing normally, call 000 and push hard and fast in the centre of the chest. And maybe think of something else to do with that old CPR mask. Alpha Romeo 15672 preparing for takeoff.
My name is Dr. Tony Smith. I'm the Medical Director for St John, and I'm going to talk to you about how to do CPR and how to use an AED, also known as a defibrillator. CPR is the method of pumping blood around a person's body by pushing on their chest and blowing in their mouth when they have suffered from a cardiac arrest, which simply means that their heart has stopped beating. Medical conditions such as a heart attack can cause the heart to stop beating, but other causes include drowning and electric shock. When cardiac arrest happens, the person becomes unconscious and they stop breathing. And when that happens, they need CPR to help save their life. CPR is easy to learn, it's easy to do, and it saves lives. Every day in New Zealand, somewhere between 3 and 4 people will need CPR in order to help save their lives. If a person suffers a cardiac arrest, make sure an ambulance has been called, put them flat on their back and start CPR. Using a defibrillator, if there is one nearby, will substantially increase their chance of survival. AED stands for Automated External Defibrillator. It's a portable emergency defibrillator. A defibrillator is a device which supplies a safe electric shock in order to restart a heart which has stopped beating. If a person in cardiac arrest receives a shock from a defibrillator prior to an ambulance arriving, their chances of surviving are much, much higher. AEDs are most useful where large numbers of people get together, and there is now an AED at your local ASB branch. In this demonstration, I'm going to show you how to do CPR and use an AED on an adult. Before you do anything, make sure that an ambulance has been called and nobody is in danger. You are then going to push on the chest and blow in the mouth. You push on the chest 30 times and you blow in the mouth twice. Remember this, 30 to 2 no matter who. Now, let's have a go. To push on the chest, put one hand on top of the other. Put your hands in the middle of the chest with your shoulders over the patient and keep your arms straight. Push hard and push fast 30 times. 28, 29, 30. Now blow twice in the mouth. Tilt the head, pinch the nose and blow twice. Now back on the chest 30 times. "28, 29, 30. Remember, 30 to 2, no matter who. Push hard and push fast. Keep doing this until the ambulance arrives. The most important part of CPR is the chest compressions. Remember to push hard and push fast. If you don't know how fast, you need to push at 100 a minute, and the beat of the Bee Gees song Staying Alive is exactly 100 beats a minute. So get that song in your mind and concentrate on the chest compressions. If you don't want to do the mouth to mouth, or you can't do the mouth to mouth, then just do the chest compressions, because some CPR is better than no CPR at all. If there is an AED nearby, this could increase the patient's chance of surviving by up to 40%. AEDs are designed for people who have no prior medical knowledge and use simple voice instructions so that anyone can use the AED safely and effectively. I'm going to demonstrate using a Philips HeartStart AED, noting that the principles of using an AED are the same no matter what the brand is. The most important thing is to keep calm and follow the voice instructions from the AED. Start by turning the AED on.
Begin by removing all clothing from the patient's chest. Cut clothing if needed. When patient's chest is bare, remove protective cover and take out white adhesive pads. Look carefully at the pictures on the white adhesive pads. Peel one pad from the yellow plastic liner. Place pad exactly as shown in the picture. Press firmly to patient's bare skin. When the first pad is in place, look carefully at the picture on the second pad. Peel the second pad from the yellow plastic liner. Place pad exactly as shown in the picture. Press firmly to patient's bare skin. No one should touch the patient. Analyzing. Shock advised. Stay clear of patient. Press the flashing orange button now. Deliver shock now. Shock delivered. Be sure the ambulance service has been called. It is safe to touch the patient. Start CPR. For help with CPR, press the flashing blue button.
So that's how you do CPR and use an AED on an adult. Remember, it's easy to learn, it's easy to do, and with it you could save a life.
Hi, I'm Charlotte from Zoll. This year, for Restart a Heart Day, we're inviting you to take 5 minutes out of your day to learn or remind yourself how to restart a heart. These 5 minutes could help save the life of someone you know or love, so we encourage you to share this with your friends and your family and your co-workers. Every year, approximately 34,000 Australians and New Zealanders suffer an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, and sadly, only 1 in 10 survive. It can happen to anyone, at any age, at any time, and you can help save a life by providing CPR to keep the victim's blood pumping and by using an automated external defibrillator, or AED, to provide a shock to the heart. We're spending a lot more time at home at the moment, so it's important you know where your nearest AED is. You might have one in your apartment block, or at your nearest supermarket or chemist. Keep an eye out and make sure you know where your nearest AED is, should you need it in an emergency. Step 1. Call. Firstly, if you find someone unconscious and not breathing normally, call 000 so help is on the way. Locate the nearest defibrillator. Press the on button or open the lid to begin and follow the prompts. Don't be scared. The device will guide you through all the life-saving steps. Cut or tear away clothing to expose a bare chest. Attach the defibrillation pads as per the images shown. On the Zoll AED3, if the patient is a child, press the child button and follow the prompts to reposition the pads. The AED will analyse the heart rhythm and determine if a shock is advised. Follow the prompts to deliver the shock and begin CPR.
Don't touch patient. Press flashing shock button.
Shocking.
Shock delivered.
Step 2. Push. Not every victim will require a shock, but everyone will require CPR. Providing compressions at least 5 centimetres deep at a rate of 100 to 120 compressions per minute can more than double the chance of survival. The Zoll range of AEDs include real-time CPR feedback to give you the confidence to provide the highest quality compressions possible. To begin compressions, interlace your fingers. Place the heel of your hand on the centre of the victim's chest, lock your elbows and push hard, following the click of the AED's metronome. Step 3. Shock. Continue compressions until the AED tells you to stop. The AED will analyse the heart rhythm every 2 minutes and deliver a shock if necessary. You might get tired, so if there is help available, swap rescuers during this time and be prepared to continue CPR after each analysis. When emergency medical professionals arrive, they will take over the rescue. To help them, do not turn the AED off, as it will provide them with key information. So, remember these 3 simple steps to help save a life. Call for help. Start CPR, pushing hard and fast in the centre of the chest. And shock using a defibrillator or AED if one is available. Turn it on and follow the prompts. They are that simple to use. Congratulations! You have just learned how to restart a heart with a Zoll AED 3. Please share this information with your friends and family, and together we could potentially save a life. Oh, and don't forget to look out for your nearest AED. Thank you.
It only takes 2 hands to save a life.
It only takes 2 hands to save a life.
Did you know that 80% of cardiac arrests happen in our homes? Do you know what to do? Remember, call, push, shock. And take time to learn how to do CPR. You may save the life of a loved one.
There will be loads of thoughts rushing through your head when you're faced with a cardiac arrest, including the aftermath of the event. Let's hear how people who have responded to an event coped with the situation.
So there was absolutely no access to a defib. We were inside a person's home, so and there was no mention of a defib. I didn't even think of a defib, to be honest.
The use of defibrillators is absolutely critical to maximise the chance of survival.
So I remember the triple O operator saying to me, "Have you got a defibrillator?" And I thought, what, like, why on earth would I have a defibrillator? But then I realised now, perhaps if I was a soccer coach or someone who took the kit home with them and had a defib, you know, there could be people in that situation that do have access to one. But no, I wasn't in any position. I was at home, so I was nowhere near a service station or even a shops that would, and it was the middle of the night, so I didn't have access to a defibrillator.
First responders or members of the public should quickly ascertain if there is an automated external defibrillator in close proximity that they can use or that they can apply to the patient for the sake of resuscitating them.
The football ground that we were at is a very large facility, and there were ground staff available who knew exactly where the AED was and brought it to us straight away.
There was no access to defib units. The best we had was our hands and our lungs.
Cardiac arrests are an incredibly traumatic experience, and they're traumatic even for seasoned paramedics.
You know, my workplace was, they were good. They offered me support and counselling, and being a bloke, I said no. Just got on with it.
Probably my first thought was I didn't want to be pitied, so I'm like, I'm okay, and trying to be strong and trying to just focus on my daughter, really. I have personally sought help. I've had some really fantastic support around me, but I think all the work that I do with the foundation and the dedicated people, both paramedics and people on the board, I think has been really amazing. I moved away from the situation and I just grabbed my husband and my son and held on really tight, because it wasn't my family member that was going through that, it was somebody else. And we just left the house and left that family to deal with what they had to deal with, and I don't know if he survived.
I'd encourage anybody who's been involved in any traumatic type situation, whether it's witnessing an accident, a cardiac arrest, seek help. You'll replay things in your head over and over and over again, and it's really important to talk about that.
You know, one minute we were planning a family holiday and another baby, and next minute I was planning his funeral and, organ donation. So I think I was in shock. I didn't seek counselling initially, but probably about 6 months later I did, and I found it really comforting dealing with or speaking with other people who had been through similar circumstances.
When you call 000 because someone has had a cardiac arrest, the 000 operator can provide really important and in fact life-saving advice about what to do.
She just tried to bring me back into the moment and to stop the panicking and just try to keep me very calm and very focused on doing the breaths.
And she said, he's obviously in the bed, you need to drag him off the bed onto the floor. I said, I can't, he's 6'4", he's 90 kilos, I'm tiny, I can't, get him off the bed. And she was stern with me, but, supportive, and said, you need to start CPR.
So they will explain to you how to perform chest compressions, how regular to perform those compressions.
And she was just amazing. She kept me so calm and talked me through, the compressions and when to do the breathing. And I couldn't have done it without having her on the other end of the phone.
And they will provide you support and guidance right through to when the paramedics arrive.
As soon as I found the lady, or as soon as I was aware of the lady, it was immediately my request was to contact the ambulance.
Bystanders should call 000 immediately after they identify a patient has collapsed.
I was probably only a minute or so after I realised that something was wrong, but I called 000.
After walking into the bathroom and seeing what was happening and trying to move Michael, I went and grabbed my mobile phone and then rang the ambulance.
The window of time in which a patient can be successfully resuscitated is very short. And to delay calling 000, to delay activating that advanced cardiac life support that paramedics bring, will be detrimental to the patient.
I grabbed for my phone and pressed, just kept holding down the button where it just automatically dials emergency and just kept yelling emergency and 000, and it called the ambulance for me. But at the same time, I started to put in and do some of the CPR techniques that I'd only just learnt literally 2 weeks beforehand. I'd just done my CPR course. Thank goodness. Yes, I did give breaths, yep.
Yes, I did give breaths. Yeah.
No, I didn't. No.
Effective chest compressions and early defibrillation are the mainstays to achieving successful resuscitation. And because of concerns around exposure to infectious disease, the recommendations have moved away from providing mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
You know, when you do the training, you've got a plastic alcohol wipe and you put a plastic over it, it's got a hole, and I didn't have anything like that. So there was 3 other people in the room and someone put their hand up and did it. And for me, that was a big relief, because it is very confronting to have to do that to a stranger. I don't imagine that would have been a problem if it was my husband or someone else that I knew.
We're lucky enough the AED came very quickly, and they also had an ambu bag as well, so we were actually able to do a combination of cardiac compressions and also bag mask ventilation, which is where you put the mask over the person's face and you're able to deliver them some air by squeezing a bag.
In the last few years, technology has made great strides in assisting with improving survival rates from cardiac arrest. One of the great tools that is on offer across Australia and New Zealand is GoodSam, a bystander app that connects the patient with people who are skilled in CPR and AED use.
Hi, it's Mark Wilson from GoodSam here, and thanks ever so much to the CAA for asking us to give an update on GoodSam and cardiac arrest crowdsourcing, and where some of the other work that we're doing to try and improve triage and emergency responses. I'm going to be talking about 3 main things around the GoodSam platform, very much focusing on the alerting and dispatching of volunteer responders during cardiac arrest, but also around some of the other things now in terms of team communications, incident management, and video streaming that's becoming even more important during these times of COVID. But first of all, let's go back to where we started. So 7 years ago, GoodSam launched really to provide a platform that could crowdsource resuscitation. And this is this comprises many organisations now, over 200 organisations of people who are able to provide CPR and AED use as it's part of their training. And this includes statutory organisations such as police and fire, through to first aid organisations who do training and use it as a way of communicating with their community ongoing. And that system now is very highly advanced. There's a very highly advanced app that not only shows you where your colleagues are and you can talk to them through the app through a radio function, but also where the local AEDs are around you, as well as being a platform that obviously deploys you, either alerting you or deploying you formally if you are the statutory response to emergencies. And that system is now used across most of the UK and large parts of the rest of the world, as you know, across New Zealand and Ambulance Victoria, and other places taking it on board now as well, and particularly in the US and places where there's less availability of ambulance services. In London, the system, for example, is used about 30 to 40 times a day to cardiac arrests, with about nearly two-thirds, just over 2/3 of them being cardiac arrests. There's a slightly false positive element to this, but that's what you want. You don't want to be missing cardiac arrests, and those people who you still get alerted to are often extremely sick, so it's still a worthwhile deployment. And as I say, the system is now used around the world, and pre-COVID, we were probably hearing of a survivor probably every day or every other day through the platform. And that's through a person who registered being alerted prior to an ambulance service arriving and starting CPR. Also within the platform is probably the most advanced AED database, and we believe that AED data belongs to the statutory organisation for that region. So whilst we collect that data, it's not our data. We give it to the ambulance authority for that region, and everywhere we work, it very kindly shares it back with us as well. So that means we can display that data within the app. And when people see an AED, for example, at a train station or similar, they upload it through the app or through a website. We work with lots of organisations to actually be able to do that for them to accumulate their AED data. It appears on the map as an orange AED initially. We confirm the geolocation of it and through the photo they upload, and then we can do further analysis of that to confirm that it's the battery is working and the pads are in date, and the guardian of that AED, for example, and then that appears as a red AED on the platform. And that's mapped well over 100,000 AEDs now. We also have the world's only mobile AED registry, because what we realised was we mapped probably most of the static AEDs, but many of them are in the boots of people's cars. And for example, in London, there's many police cars that carry AEDs, about 700. There's buses that carry AEDs, and we can monitor those as well. And people carry them in the boot of their car. So actually, why not use this massive resource? Because at the end of the day, it's not an AED that saves a life, and it's not a person that saves lives. It's a person with an AED that usually saves someone's life. But you'll have heard recently that now that we're well into COVID, and in the UK that's becoming second wave, cardiac arrest survival has gone down considerably. And that's for a number of reasons, but it may include reasons, for example, that when crews are on scene, they're having to spend additional time putting PPE on, but also people are not so comfortable doing bystander CPR. And most places are now not alerting their public sector or their public grouping, public first aiders through Good Sam and similar kind of systems. And that means that out-of-hospital cardiac arrest has taken a big hit during COVID, and that's something we really need to address, especially with Bridge Starter Heart Day, getting the message out there that it's actually safe to do CPR. Virtually everyone now has a mask in their pocket, so go on scene, start CPR, don't check for breathing, wash your hands after you've completed this. Those are the basic messages that we probably should be getting through, because the chance of that person having COVID is small, the chance of that person transmitting COVID to you is really small, and the chance of you dying of COVID is virtually negligible, versus the risk to that person of you not starting CPR, which means 100% not going to survive. So that's the kind of message we really need to start getting out there. Now in the UK, we've been doing a lot of other stuff other than just cardiac arrest. The NHS approached us to ask us whether we could use our platform to alert or recruit, alert, and then monitor and deploy and take referrals for 750,000 volunteers to provide basic care, as in like check-in and chat type social support, delivery of food, delivery of medicines and patient transport to hospital, to provide this support to people who are self-isolating as part of the COVID pandemic. And that's been working extremely well. It's now done virtually a million tasks, which is about 20,000 a day. And it has been working extremely well, and it's now rolling into the winter, so it's going to be used for a lot more, including flu vaccination support, snow patrol to help clear people's driveways. It's going to be used as very much a generic, non-clinical alerting volunteering platform to allow micro-volunteering. This is a big change, because the third sector has not really had this ability to utilise this sort of Uber type phenomenon, but this has really brought this to a fore. And not only can we do it for non-clinical, we're working with St John and other places to do it for clinical support during COVID as well. The other side of stuff is the ability to communicate with staff and other volunteers through the platform itself, by utilising the radio function, for example, in it, but also being able to see where people are at any one time. So for major incidents, this has lots of uses, and it's now being used not just in the UK but in other parts of the world for major incidents. So you can see where international volunteers are, for example, and then be able to support them and communicate with them if further incidents happen. And the other thing I was going to talk about really was the use of video now, which is a really major component, especially in light of the COVID pandemic. Now, the unique things about this are the way this is designed very much for the emergency services, so for the 000 services and 911 in the US. It enables people to open the cameras of a mobile phone whilst maintaining that 000 call. And it works in a very simple way. There's no apps to download. There is no no plugins, no nothing, and it can be sent as a text message or as a link within an email. The caller receives that message, they click the link, and they're told that it's going to ask them if they can share their location data and their video data. They say yes, or they give consent rather to those two prompts, and then the whole system starts to work. Incidentally, if you've got your staff, for example, on the Good Sam app, they can actually trigger video directly from the app itself, and that can go straight through to central control, dispatch, or more importantly to the on-call neurosurgeon, neurologist, or similar stroke consultant, and get instant advice from the person who's on call for that region. And that opens up a whole new world of integrated care, which we'll talk about more in a second. The video itself can be one way, as I say, so it can trigger within 5 seconds, and the call the call remains on the 000 call whilst that's going on. Everything about this is secure, so it's AES-256 encrypted, GDPR, HIPAA compliant, and that video can be forwarded in real time to other services, so to police and fire, but also to the air ambulance service, for example. And even if there's relatively poor connection, the frame rate optimizes for that to be useful video still. You can obviously initiate two-way consultations or multi-way consultations as well. Bring as many people in as one. Bring in Auntie Doris, who's the next of kin who lives in another state. That's no trouble. Bring in a translator. Bring in anyone you want into this immediate consultation where no one has to download any apps. And you can screen share, you can blur your background just as you would do in many other video consultation platforms. And as I say, there's multiple storage options within that. One of the new features we're just releasing at the moment is really game-changing, and that's the ability for the voice to transcribe and also translate in real time. And this is particularly useful for hard of hearing. Obviously, if you can transcribe it, if they can't hear you, at least they can read what you're saying. But equally, the translate function is huge. You don't have to get any translators. 104 languages are supported, and the translation is extremely accurate in real time. Yeah, we hope that's going to be particularly useful. We also have artificial intelligence built into the system, so we can measure, for example, heart rate very easily. Just hold the camera towards the person's face, and they can, and then within about 5-6 seconds, it will give you a pulse rate of that person. And just very briefly, the whole thing about video triage is it's way more than just the audio message or the audio that you can hear. So if you can see what's going on, it really does make things a lot quicker, and you can see the scene as in the mechanism of injury, and you can see the patient. So if someone says my husband's fallen down the stairs, but actually you can see he's elderly, he's landed on marble floor, you might be able to get an idea of his GCS. All those things will determine how rapidly you dispatch resource. For mental health, it's got huge uses. What's their eye contact like? What clothing are they wearing? Are they on a bridge? Are they actually going to? Are they really suicidal? What's their house like? Is it dishevelled? All these things, and you can do 1- and 2-way. So actually, you can start to give empathy back and provide additional support by the 2-way nature of video as well. This lady's complaining of a numb face. Well, actually, she has a weak face, and you can say, well, actually, can you lift your arm up? No, my arm is weak. You can make stroke assessments and then get them to the right centre quickly and get the HASU prepared, because even the stroke consultant can see this before they arrive. From a scene safety point of view, hang on, there's a circular saw there. Before you go near this patient, who's obviously a fake patient, before you go near him, please make sure that saw is switched off at the wall.
The Good Sam app is available in Victoria and integrated with Ambulance Victoria's dispatch system to quickly connect patients with help in the vital first minutes of a cardiac arrest. Every day, 16 Victorians suffer a cardiac arrest in the community, like Jack, who has suddenly collapsed at home and stopped breathing. His best chance of survival is if CPR is started immediately and a defibrillator is used as soon as possible. Time is critical as Jack's family call 000 for an ambulance. The call taker immediately dispatches emergency services and guides Jack's family to provide CPR while paramedics are on the way. At the same time, nearby Good Sam responders receive a phone alert that Jack needs help. Zoe, an off-duty lifesaver, and Max, a qualified first aider, both accept the alert. Good Sam directs them to Jack's location and where to find the nearest registered defibrillator. Zoe and Max arrive within minutes and perform life-saving CPR and defibrillation until emergency services arrive. Paramedics provide advanced care to stabilise Jack and then transport him to hospital. It takes a team to save a life, and Good Sam brings our community closer when someone needs urgent medical help.
On the day when I had the cardiac arrest, I was at a local working bee with Mary stationeers, weeding and having a beautiful time in the sunshine.
When Susie collapsed, she was just 2 or 3 metres away from me. She was right in front of me. She'd just taken a photo. She kind of went down on one knee and pitched backwards.
Basically, both Ross and I ran over to her, and I think it was at that point where I was trying to elicit from Ross whether she was epileptic, but at the same time, you know, calling 000.
Okay, so is she breathing?
It looks as though she's not breathing anymore.
Okay, I'm going to tell you how to do CPR. Okay.
I think the reality was it was only a couple of minutes that I was giving CPR until there was a responder from Good Sam.
My phone made a siren noise. I had a look on the screen and accepted the request and saw that there was a crowd of people nearby, so I headed down that way and followed the map to where Susie needed assistance.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
You got someone there with you?
I'll never forget, there was a very special moment. It was about 4 minutes in and I heard a voice behind me saying, "Can I help?" Found out later she was responding to the Good Sam app.
The CPR that Paul and Ross had provided was successful and she was breathing and she had a cardiac output when I was there, so I rolled her into the recovery position. It was at that point about 20 seconds later that she stopped breathing again and her heart stopped beating. So we rolled her back and commenced CPR again.
When we first arrived at the scene, we saw where the patient was by the fire truck and saw a civilian doing CPR, the fire brigade managing the airway, and a micro-responder setting up for intubation.
The Good Sam responder was doing CPR and they were controlling the scene really well. Her early arrival and CPR was critical to the survival of the patient.
You know, the outcome would have been very different had it not been for the quick thinking of Paul and his assistance, the assistance we got from people around. We had children, we had all sorts of things going on. They will always be really heroes to us.
I'd like to tell my community heroes that you are my heroes. I want everyone to know, I guess, and to know about the Good Sam app. And again, their quick thinking, their generosity of spirit, their skill has meant that I can be here and I can tell this story.
Everyone can save a life, even our youngest members of society. This next section is dedicated to our kids and the importance of them knowing what to do when a cardiac arrest occurs.
If you find someone on the floor, look for danger before you do more. If not responding and you're on your own, call for a grown-up or dial on the phone. Check the airway, then see if they're breathing, then hands on their chest and we start to compress. Keep the beat going, cause it keeps the blood flowing. It's a part of the chain of survival that we use when someone needs revival. Keep the beat, keeps the blood flowing right up to the brain, and then we start it again. Keep the beat going, cause it keeps the blood flowing. It's a part of the chain of survival that we use when someone needs revival. Keep the beat that keeps the blood flowing right up to the brain, and then we start it again.
might think that kids and infants can't suffer from a cardiac arrest, but sadly that isn't true. There are many causes, medical or other, that can lead to a child suffering from a cardiac arrest.
Some of my son's friends were up for a birthday party and they decided to go for a swim after they had dinner. When they went for a swim, Noah had realised that something wasn't quite right.
He had a cardiac arrest, from what we can gather.
His friend Harrison was behind him and managed to keep him out of the water.
I had told Harrison about my seizures. He's always checking on me if I'm near him.
His lips were slightly bluish purple, so we called for help.
When I arrived on the scene, we noticed that the boy had stopped breathing, and so we commenced CPR.
It's very important that someone can start CPR if possible before we arrive, because the average ambulance response time can be 8 to 10 minutes and the brain can start to die from a lack of oxygen in 3 to 5 minutes.
As I was doing the CPR, Susie called for the defibrillator to be brought down.
Defibrillators are very important to the survival of cardiac arrest, as in this case. The community first responder system is designed that where locations have defibrillators, such as Redfield, if a call is made for an ambulance, the call taker knows that there is a defibrillator at that location.
I had recently done first aid training, so yeah, that was really helpful to have that background knowledge to really help me in a tricky situation.
It's very important that community learn first aid courses.
I've seen people save lives literally because of the first aid training.
Jodie's thinking was just so critical in the situation, and I'm so glad she had first aid knowledge.
The importance of St John's first aid courses in the community are evidenced by the situation exactly.
You never know, you might save a life like Jodie saved mine.
So it was a normal day, just like any other day. Got up, play footy. I was fine after the first half, and then just happened out of nowhere, my heart stopped. Complete stranger, Tony, just jumped the fence, didn't hesitate, and he started CPR on me.
I was here at Wallen watching my daughter play netball, stopped to watch the footy and saw that Liam had stopped behind play. The play had left and then he collapsed.
We were so lucky to have a defib on the day that this happened with Liam, because there was nothing that happened on the footy field that caused it, so you never know when you're going to need to use something like that. It saved his life.
Because the club had an AED and they knew how to use it, I'm back at work and hopefully back next year to join my mates on the footy field.
Anyone can save a life, I did, so learn how to restart a heart today.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
guys, what's
10,
happening?
11, 12,
Unconscious,
13,
casualty,
14,
not
15,
breathing.
16,
Yep, how long are we in the water
18,
for?
19,
About 30
20,
seconds.
30
22,
seconds. 22,
All right, well, I need you to
24,
set the oxygen
25,
up for me while I start
27, 28, 29, 30.
Place, pad. Keep going. His chest completely dry. Okay, I'm setting up oxygen.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16,
Alright, so stand clear.
No one should touch the patient. Analyzing. Shock not advised.
No shock advised. Let's continue with your CPR.
1,
How's the
2,
oxygen coming
3,
along?
4. I was playing soccer and I felt really dizzy.
My legs just gave out from under me.
I was turning blue and I had no pulse.
And then I had a cardiac arrest.
They tried to revive me and they couldn't.
Someone got a defib.
And started CPR.
The defibrillator restarted my heart.
If those guys hadn't been there, or if they hadn't been able to get a defib, I wouldn't have survived, that's for sure.
We asked our experts from Queensland Ambulance Service to help guide us through the difference between cardiac arrests and CPR in adults and children.
Hi everyone, my name's Tony Hucker from the Queensland Ambulance Service. This is a short tutorial on what to do if we're confronted with a baby or an infant who has collapsed and is in cardiac arrest. But before we get into the resuscitation, I want to talk about some of the things that are really important from a prevention perspective. The reasons young children have cardiac arrest, it's generally not from disease or heart attacks. They're just way too young and healthy for that. It's usually other things, and it's risky things that they get into. They either ingest, choke, can have backyard accidents and so on. So it's really important we think about safety and prevention first before we even start on the topic of resuscitation. So if you've got young ones at home, just get on your hands and knees and crawl around the house and try and find the things that your little ones might access and put in their mouth or play with, or get access to things that might be dangerous, power, tools, sharp things that they can choke on. That's a really good exercise. Then go online and have a look at all the kids safe programs and try and make your house and your home environment really safe for your little ones. However, if we do get confronted with a little one like this that is non-breathing and in cardiac arrest, the process is really simple. It's Doctors ABC. You can look that up on the Australian Resuscitation Council website. There's a few things we need to know because they are different from adults. They're little, but their airway and breathing is a little bit different too. You notice you've got a really small mouth, they've got small nostrils, and under 6 months of age they prefer to breathe through their nose. So when we're cleaning the airway, we need to make sure we clear the nostrils as well. They have this airway that is designed, particularly young bubs, that is designed for sucking and breathing at the same time so they can drink and swallow. So they've got a very, very big floppy epiglottis. They've got large tongues as well, and they've got small airways, so it's really important we consider that. They've also got a big head. So when they're on their back, their head tends to push forward and flex their neck and can sometimes actually cut off their airways. So when we lie them on a flat surface, we need to put something under their shoulders to bring their head into a more neutral position. When you think about their breathing, they've got really compliant chests, so their ribs are bendy. They don't have fatigue-resistant fibres like adults do, so that means they just run out of energy really quick when their work of breathing is increased. So they can run out of puff pretty quickly when they're little and in respiratory distress. So what do we do? If we're confronted with a young baby like this that is non-breathing, it's pretty evident straight away. So it's dangers, and in this case it's getting them into a workable area. So pick them up off the ground or wherever you found them, in the bedroom, back seat of the car or something like that, and get them into a safe working spot. But so it's Doctors ABC, so there's no danger. Is there a response? No, give them a shake and a yell, and there's no response there. Then send for help. That's really important. Get someone to ring 000 straight away and get an ambulance on the way. And then we want to have a look at the airway, because most problems with infants and babies of this size, it's to do with their airway and breathing. It's very rarely a primary cause from a heart problem. So check the airway, get them on their side, open their mouth up, have a good look in, wipe the mucus off the mucosa, and actually tilt the head down and drain the fluid out if you can. Next thing is to check for breathing. Now do that for about 5 or 10 seconds. This child is not breathing. We need to get them down onto the table, and then what we need to do is really gently ventilate their lungs. But we tend to want to do this in infants, but even so, the rules need to be that we should start compression straight away, like we do with adults. So while we're tempted to start doing expired air resuscitation or rescue breathing, we should start compressions. There are a couple of ways we can do that. Centre of the chest, with our 2 fingers, press 1/3 of the depth of the chest at about 100 compressions a minute, like so. Or, and this is a better technique, is with your 2 thumbs, like so. Okay, and what we're doing is 30 compressions and 2 inflations. So 29, 28, 29, 30, 2 puffs. Puff, puff. When you puff the air in, just loosely cover mouth and nose, and what you want to do is just look out the corner of your eye and watch the chest rise. We're not looking for big movement, because if you actually blow too much air into the lungs, they'll fill, and then you put air down in the tummy. And if you fill the tummy up with air, it makes it harder for them to breathe. So it's really important, just gentle puffs, like puh, puh, like so. Then back to 30 compressions. So let's just do that again, just to whip through this. So the approach is, we've picked this child up, the child is floppy, lifeless, turning blue, there is no dangers, so we check for a response, send for help, 000, open the airway up, have a look in the airway, and open their mouth, clean their nostrils, listen, look, listen and feel for breathing. There is none. Straight into compressions. Okay. Remember, 30 compressions, 2 inflations. 28, 29, 30. Down, puff, puff, back. As we start thinking about resuscitation in a more advanced way, we will then want to increase the number of breaths. So we'll actually do 15 compressions to 2 inflations. That's the preferred method in young infants, but it's okay to start with 30 to 2 at the start. We're really focusing on basic life support today. Now, while we're waiting for help to come along and the compressions are going along and someone comes along to help you, it might be time to think about attaching a defibrillator as well. And think about the dangers, response, airway, breathing, circulation, ABC, doctors ABC, D. D is at the end for defibrillation. So defibrillators, there's all sorts on the market. As long as they're TGA approved, they're fine. And it's unlikely that babies need a shock, but we still should attach a defibrillator anyway. And what we do, the simple approach with defibrillators, we switch them on and follow the instructions. And if it's an adult defibrillator, it's okay, because what you can do, you can take the adult pads and pop them on the front of the child's chest like so, and the other one on the back like so. Anchor it really nicely, and the machine will then tell you what to do, okay? This is really scary stuff. We see in Queensland around 100 cardiac arrests in this age group, so it's really rare. So the only way you can kind of have any sense of confidence in looking after babies this size is actually practice it. Go and do a first aid course. Make sure you do it every year. If you've got little ones, probably do it a little bit more often so you feel more comfortable. And what it will do, it will reinforce the important issues around safety in your home. So let's make sure it doesn't happen. Safety first, and then if we can, do a first aid course and get yourself proficient at resuscitation in this young age group as well as adults.
We check in with our friends at Learadol to see what a class in infant CPR looks like. It's important that parents and carers take time to do an infant CPR class to get ready for any unforeseen accidents. Incidents surrounding infants are many and occur very fast. We need to be ready as time in infant cardiac arrest is even more critical than in adults. We encourage everyone to regularly refresh their infant CPR, also known as baby CPR, to be ready for any accidents. Wellington Free Ambulance demonstrates the difference and similarities in performing CPR and using AEDs on adults, kids and infants.
I'm now going to talk you through how to do CPR. We use the doctor's ABCD approach. So we're going to start with D for danger. First, you want to make sure that there's no danger to yourself, the patient or any bystanders. R is for response. So we want to check a response from our patient. So we'll start by talking to them. Hello, can you open your eyes? Can you hear me? If that doesn't work, we want to elicit a response. We'll do so by gently shaking and asking them to open their eyes. S is for send for help. So you want to call 111 and ask for an ambulance. Also remember to ask somebody to seek your nearest AED when you're calling for help. A is for airway. we want to open the patient's airway and check for any obstructions or anything that could be occluding their airway. We'll do so by placing one hand on the patient's forehead and one hand under the chin and lifting their airway open, whilst having a look inside to make sure that there's no obvious obstruction of the airway. B is for breathing. Next, we want to check if our patient is breathing. We're going to do that by listening and feeling for any breaths for up to 10 seconds, but no longer. C is for compressions. We want to make sure that we remove clothing from the upper body. Place your hands in the centre of the chest, one on top of the other, and compress continuously until further help arrives. For a child, your compressions are exactly the same as an adult, except you're going to use one hand. So you're going to find the centre of the chest and compress continuously with one hand. For an infant, we're going to do the same with our depth being 1/3 of the chest depth, and we're going to use 2 fingers in the centre of the chest. So between the nipple lines is the centre of the chest, and we're going to compress continuously there. Alternatively, you can use your thumbs. One thumb over the other and compress in the centre of the chest. Don't worry if you don't recall all of that. When you call 111, our emergency medical call takers will talk you through this process. Over to you, Caitlin.
Thanks, Brendan. When you call 111, you'll be transferred to one of our emergency medical call takers. We will then ask you for your address. Please remember to give us the exact address so that we can get help to you as quickly as possible. Our call takers will also ask you what has happened. If the patient is not awake and not breathing, we will guide you through CPR, and we will count the chest compressions with you so you're not alone. We'll stay on the phone with you until a paramedics or a first responder arrives. It is important that you carefully listen to our instructions so that we can help the patient together. And don't worry, an ambulance is already on the way.
Did you know that over 34,000 Australians and New Zealanders suffer an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest every year, and only 1 in 10 survives? We can do better than that. We can change that. Learn CPR and how to use an AED. Save a life. It's crucial that the public know what to do when someone suffers a cardiac arrest. If you consider that for every 1 minute that CPR is not being performed, the heart muscle dies by 10%. Your quick action will save heart muscle. You can see how this is life-changing. Learn CPR, learn how to use an AED.
Start them young, we say. Get the kids involved. Teach them the call, push, shock steps so that they'll know what to do and where to get help if they come across a cardiac arrest.
We're here today to teach the Year 6s of Sacred Heart Primary School the message of call, push, shock and the chain of survival. It's fantastic to teach kids. They are the perfect vessel to spread this message, and they often go off and teach their friends, parents and other students at school. And that only serves to increase our rates of bystander CPR and the awareness of AEDs or defibrillators in our community. Once you have the knowledge and the skills, you will have the power to save a life, and you will be a heart-safe champion.
We really saw a benefit from Ben's vision for the students promoting the importance of CPR. And when we thought about the power of the student being the teacher at home, there's no way that a grandparent could say no to their grandchild when the grandchild says, "Hey, could I please teach you CPR?" That was really important to us.
They learn, they're engaged, they retain the information. It empowers the kids, it develops their confidence, it makes them important. They're not invisible.
What are the 3 things that we talk about with this program, guys? Yell them out.
The most positive aspect of this initiative is that it's engaged the students and they know that they have the power to be able to teach older people in our community the importance of CPR.
Well, I feel like it'll give our town more of an opportunity to save their life. So if more people know, the more people will actually save their life and know what to do in those situations.
I think that if everyone in our town knew, it could be a very safe place.
I learnt how to use a defibrillator. Well, I've learnt that even kids our age can do it, not only adults, and also that if you have the confidence as well, that you should be able to perform it on someone.
Does anyone know where there might be a defib around here? Last year, the grade 6s at Sacred Heart Primary School were great enough to raise some money, and they actually placed an AED on the front of the school.
It was the student voice who initiated the idea of having an AED on site. They noticed that Tatura didn't have a 24-hour accessible AED, and it was their vision and their fundraising that brought that to life.
It's so important to teach kids because it doesn't matter of their age, they can still be exposed to cardiac arrest. So them knowing it means that they'll be prepared in the unfortunate case of a cardiac arrest. But not only that, they're fantastic teachers and they often take the message and spread it amongst their peers, which is also a fantastic part of the program.
Well, I think the more people that know, the more lives we can save, and that's pretty simple.
Kia ora koutou, my name's Olivia. My mum works for Wellington Free Ambulance and this is what she's taught me to do in an emergency. If you see someone who needs help, she said to, number 1, call 111 and ask for an ambulance. Tell them where you are. It's important that you know your address just in case an emergency happens at home. Number 2, find another adult who can help you but make sure you stay on the phone. Number 3, listen to the person on the phone. They will tell you what to do and you might be able to help by doing CPR.
That's awesome. Well done, Olivia.
Hey kids, I'm Erin.
I'm Cassie.
And I'm Tom. And we're paramedics.
At SA Ambulance Service, or SAS as we call it, there's lots of people like us ready to respond to emergencies.
Today, we're at our ambulance station in Parafield. We have 121 stations across the whole of South Australia and over 3,000 people ready to go to emergencies. There are paramedics like us, as well as a wide range of other medical practitioners and our volunteer ambulance officers in most country towns. All these people are supported by other staff who take care of things to ensure our ambulances are ready to respond.
Let's take a look around our Parafield ambulance station. Come on. Here's our training room where we can practice and learn new skills to help our patients. And this is our crew room where we can have a little rest when we're not helping someone. In our kitchen, you'll always find a paramedic drinking coffee or eating a yummy snack. Healthy, of course. This is our storeroom where we keep our medicines and equipment that we stock our ambulances with. And this is our garage where all our vehicles are.
Let's look at the types of vehicles we have. Firstly, we have our sprint car. This special car lets us get to emergencies as quickly as possible while a normal ambulance is on the way. The people in these cars are highly trained and will start life-saving treatment as soon as they can. This is a team leader car. A team leader is a senior paramedic who is used to manage large emergencies. Everyone who responds to an emergency will look to them for guidance to ensure that we all stay safe. Sometimes at big events like the Fringe or New Year's Eve at Glenelg, our paramedics use bikes. Bikes allow us to easily navigate large crowds, and we can start treatment quickly while an ambulance gets to the scene. Then there's helicopters. This one is pretty cool. Our helicopter, which belongs to the Government of South Australia, can go anywhere in the state to help really sick patients and bring them back to one of our city hospitals. They can even land on the roof of some hospitals. There are special paramedics, doctors and nurses who use these helicopters. Sometimes they might even use a Royal Flying Doctor aeroplane if the patient is really far away from Adelaide. And finally, here is the vehicle that everyone knows, our ambulance. Let's have a look inside.
In an ambulance, there's lots of buttons, tools and compartments to help us do our job. Here we have our mobile data terminal. This dispatches us to a job and provides details like the patient's condition and the address to go to. Here's our radio, so we can talk to our teammates back in the Emergency Operations Centre. And these are the switches for the lights and sirens.
In the back of the ambulance, we have a lot of equipment to treat our patients with. In these bags, we have even more equipment, like gloves, masks, and some medicines to make you feel better. We've also got lots of different types of bandages to help patients who may be bleeding. We even have little ambo bears for our little patients to cuddle. If you ever need an ambulance, there's nothing to be afraid of. When you call 000 and ask for an ambulance, you will speak to one of our amazing call takers. They will ask you what happened and where you are. And sometimes they might even ask you to start to help the person who is sick. Listen carefully, and before you know it, the ambulance will arrive.
This is Holly. She's not sick, but if she was, this is how we would treat her. Thanks for helping us out today, Holly. We might ask you some questions. It's important you answer them truthfully so you can get the correct treatment. Sometimes we might need to take your blood pressure. This is like giving your arm a big hug. We might also need to check your temperature. This is a little tool that sits just inside your ear and beeps when it's registered your temperature. We might even ask you to sit on the stretcher and listen to your chest with a stethoscope or use a heart monitor. An ECG, as we call it, can print out a picture of how your heart is working. If you have a broken arm, we'll use a splint to help stabilise your arm. And if you've hurt your neck, we have a special brace. There's also oxygen masks to help you if you have trouble breathing, a bit like you see on an aeroplane. When you're ready, we'll take you to hospital and your grown-up can ride along with you in a special chair. But first, we'll need to use the straps on the stretcher to keep you from falling off. Thanks, Holly. You've been a great pretend patient.
Just like police officers and firefighters, we're here to help you. So whether you see us in our green uniforms or red, our mission is the same, to save lives.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed looking around our ambulance station and learning how we can help you.
Remember, in an emergency, always call 000.
That's more than 80 people every day. 80 mums, dads, children and grandparents who each mean the world to someone. But only 1 in 10 survive a cardiac arrest. Together, we can beat that. Restart a Heart Day is October 16. Would you know what to do if someone's heart suddenly stopped? This Restart a Heart Day, we want every Australian to know how to do CPR and use a defibrillator. Find out more at restartaheart.net. Together, we can all help save lives.
Can you injure somebody by doing CPR? When will the ambulance get here? Who will help me? And so many more questions answered by the people who responded to a cardiac arrest.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't have, apart from cracking his sternum, I didn't have blood or vomit or anything like that. Nothing came out.
The lady ended up vomiting as well through the compressions and that, and it said she was a large lady, and we were still trying to deal with it.
No, nothing coming out of his mouth, but he was making like a gurgling noise.
It's very normal for a patient who is in cardiac arrest to vomit or have some blood around their mouth.
There was some vomit and there was some sort of foamy blood type substance that started to come up into his mouth.
You turn the person onto their side carefully, 2 people, and that one person to obviously guide the head. You don't want to move their neck without somebody guiding the head over. And it's literally just a sweep of the mouth to get it out. Again, you don't have to be a health professional to do that.
So a cardiac arrest is obviously the highest priority response, and it will automatically result in at least 2 ambulance resources responding, including an intensive care paramedic. And in New South Wales, we generally see the average response time for a cardiac arrest as being about 7 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know how long I would have been doing the CPR, maybe 5 or 10 minutes.
I think about 20 minutes. It could have been longer. As I said, it felt longer.
Look, it felt like a lifetime, but I think it was probably about 15 minutes.
About 10 minutes it took for the ambulance to arrive, and I remember looking out of my window and seeing the lights.
So you can expect a number of paramedics to arrive.
There were about 5 or 6 of them that all arrived at once. Thank Christ.
I've seen it and heard it and all sorts of things, and that, again, you're not going to do the person any harm, and you do actually need to be compressing the chest, and that you're trying to make the heart pump. So you're going to have to compress the chest fairly hard. If you hear some cracks, carry on.
You press down on the dummy and it feels really plasticky and it feels really clunky, and you just think, gosh, is this what a person feels like? Is this what it actually feels like to do it? And I remember when I did it first for Dad, and he crunched because you've got to do it really hard. And you push down really hard and the bones crunch in the chest. And that's really confronting, but you've got to keep doing that.
No, not that we're aware of. It may have happened, I guess. We certainly didn't hear anything.
When I did compressions on Michael, I did feel his sternum crack, and I did hear that. But I also saw the effectiveness of the CPR as well when he returned to a normal skin colour. And I could see I was actually doing something. And I did enough that there was still heart activity for when the ambulance got there that they could shock. So I did give him a fighting chance.
I definitely didn't break any bones, but it was hard work. I gave it a good go.
Any CPR is better than no CPR. And while that's very much the case, it's great that we do know what the key things are in good quality CPR.
There was a time when people didn't know about CPR. Now we do. And we know the quality of CPR matters. There is now a large body of research that proves quality counts. However, from beginners to experts, research also shows that even highly trained professionals often miss the mark. So how do you know if you're doing it right? It's simple. You measure. If you don't see how you're doing, it's easy to miss out on some essential steps of quality CPR. These are the 6 steps for quality CPR. Never stop compressions for longer than 10 seconds. Every time you stop chest compressions, there's no blood flowing to the heart and brain. Compressions keep blood flow constant. The ideal compression rate is 100 to 120 compressions per minute. The correct compression depth is at least 2 inches or 5 centimeters. Less than that and you may not be generating enough blood. On the way down, compressions force blood from the heart into circulation, and most importantly, to the brain. On the way up, full release allows the heart to refill before the next compression. Give 30 compressions and then 2 breaths. Avoid excessive ventilations. Each breath should last only until the chest rises. Breaths should be given gently, 6 to 8 breaths per minute. It's often said practice makes perfect, but we believe perfect practice makes perfect. That's where measurement comes in. You learn most by using CPR feedback devices to measure performance, assess the data, and provide feedback. CPR feedback, used in training and therapy, enables you to deliver quality CPR every time. The evidence is clear. When it comes to CPR, quality counts.
The Council of Ambulance Authorities is grateful for the support of the New Zealand Governor-General, Dame Patsy Reddy, who herself is a passionate supporter of the ambulance services and their work.
Would you know what to do if you came across someone in cardiac arrest? It could be a family member, a friend, or someone you don't even know lying unconscious and not breathing normally. An out-of-hospital cardiac arrest happens more often than you might think. Each day in New Zealand, St John treats approximately 5 people for an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. For every minute that goes by without CPR or using an AED, the chance of survival drops by up to 15%. This survival rate can be doubled by people taking 3 easy steps. I encourage all New Zealanders to visit the website, share the video on social media, and talk with their whānau and friends about what to do. By raising awareness and being prepared to act, we can all save a life.
We hear from St John Papua New Guinea CEO Matt Cannon on how cardiac arrest and the response of the public plays an important role in the health of Papua New Guinea communities.
I'm Matt Cannon, Commissioner of St John Ambulance in Papua New Guinea. I'm here for Restart a Heart Day to talk about cardiovascular disease in Papua New Guinea. Cardiovascular disease accounts for around 18% of deaths each year in Papua New Guinea. This makes it one of the leading causes of mortality. A sudden cardiac arrest can often be the result of cardiovascular disease. Sudden cardiac arrest isn't widely discussed in Papua New Guinea, especially as a public health issue. Public access defibrillators are not yet common. But fortunately, a growing number of shopping centres, golf courses and hotels are making sure that they have these. And we're also working with industry and businesses to help them with their cardiac arrest survival programs. There are key challenges to improving cardiac arrest survival. And as we see it, many of these are behavioural. We can do something about them. Firstly, getting people to recognise when someone is in cardiac arrest. Getting people to initiate CPR. We hear that many might be scared to start CPR. Getting people to call an ambulance early. Encouraging people to continue doing CPR while waiting for the ambulance in the city area. Another challenge to improving cardiac arrest survival is geography. Over 80% of the population live in rural areas. Ironically though, these challenges are not too dissimilar to that which ambulance services face in Australia. Unfortunately, there are other challenges in Papua New Guinea, including that we have a high death rate from maternal, neonatal and snakebite. Sadly, we lose around 2,000 women each year from labour, and over 1,000 people die from snakebite. These are all issues that St John in Papua New Guinea is focused on addressing through our ambulance service, our air medical service, and our leading first aid programs. Through these programs, We are already seeing improvements in survival, and we're ambitious to see improvements manifest in health statistics in years to come. From all of us at St John in Papua New Guinea, have a great Restart a Heart Day. We're with you all the way.
Technology keeps making great strides and assists in increasing survival rates from cardiac arrests. COVID pushed us to think outside the box, and how we learn CPR is now getting easier than ever.
We're all going through challenging times with the heavy impact that COVID-19 had on our lives. Besides the direct implications of the pandemic, organisations have mostly postponed the training of life-saving skills, which reduces the chances of surviving an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, especially with social distancing measures in place. Anywhere allows instructors to continue teaching resuscitation skills to communities anytime, anywhere, while students can join from the safety of their homes. Our course delivery solution allows instructors to train classes not only in an entirely virtual session, but also in traditional, safe classroom settings. It can even be scaled up for mass CPR events, where hundreds of learners can train simultaneously using any type of mannequin available. Conducting a training session is easy. Instructors create a class via Anywhere platform, and learners simply enter their classroom code into the QCPR Classroom app on their smartphones. Then instructors have the freedom to train their learners in various resuscitation skills according to the learning objectives. Our QCPR feedback allows instructors to observe their learners' live performance, regardless of location or equipment. It shows in real time which skill individual learners are struggling with the most, enabling instructors to provide personal improvement tips by continuously evaluated objective feedback. On top of that, learners can also follow their individual performance via their phones and improve their life-saving skills. We strive to be compatible with any mannequin, or basically anything you can compress on. The highest fidelity feedback can be achieved with our little QCPR mannequins, from compression feedback to leaning and ventilation. Mannequins such as Mini Anne, or even a homemade DIY mannequin substitute, will provide rate feedback and can be used for learners' training and assessment. Having completed the course, instructors will be able to evaluate the performance of the students and their own progress via a dashboard to continuously improve their courses, to empower lifesavers anywhere.
We cannot stress enough how important it is that everybody learns CPR and AED use. It is quick and simple, and anyone can do it and help save a life.
Knowing CPR is one of the most important things you can do to look after your family and friends. That's because most cardiac arrests happen at home. And when bystanders like you take action, the survival rate doubles.
We know that CPR can seem scary or stressful, so we're going to talk you through how to do it in just a couple of minutes. Keep in mind that when you call 000, the call taker will tell you what to do and send us straight away. But knowing what to do before we arrive makes all the difference. With cardiac arrests, seconds count, and it's up to all of us to know what to do to save a life.
So, grab a pillow or a call push shock kit if you have one, and a space on the floor, and let's get started. Over to you, Jess.
When it comes to responding to a cardiac arrest, we can break it down into 3 simple steps: call, push, shock.
Okay, The first step is to recognise that when someone is unconscious and not breathing normally, they may be in cardiac arrest and you need to call 000 immediately. Cardiac arrest means the heart has stopped beating normally and immediate action is needed. So call 000, put it on loudspeaker, and the call taker will talk you through how to do CPR. They might ask you to check the patient's breathing, but at this point, the most important thing for you to do is to just call 000 immediately.
All right, the second step is to push. Push hard, push fast. And there's no need for you to do mouth to mouth anymore. Just use your hands. If there's someone else with you, take it in turns doing CPR. Swap every 2 minutes, as it's really tiring. You'll need to continue these compressions until we arrive and take over.
Here's a few things to keep in mind as you're doing compressions. Put the person on the floor if possible, not a couch or bed. Kneel next to their chest, with your knees about shoulder width apart. Put the heel of your hand in the middle of the chest, directly between the nipples. Place your other hand on top and lock your fingers together, like this. Try and keep your fingers off the chest. This will keep your weight on the right part of your hand. Lean over the chest with your arms straight and elbows locked. Push down 1/3 of the depth of the chest and let the chest rise back up before pushing down again. To get the right speed, you can use the song Staying Alive by the Bee Gees, or Row, Row, Row Your Boat, or even Baby Shark as a reference.
Basically, you want to be doing about 2 compressions per second. Join along with me. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream.
Don't let fear get in the way. Try and stay calm. Do what you can, and remember that when it comes to CPR, any CPR is better than no CPR.
All right, we've covered how to call and push. Now let's tackle the shock component. When we say shock, we're talking about an AED or a defib machine.
AEDs are in a lot of shopping centres, schools and public places. Knowing where your nearest AED is super important.
There are many types of AEDs in the community. This is just one variety, but they're all just as easy to use. Just keep a lookout for this sign.
So, if you're nearby to one or someone can grab one for you, here's what to do. Turn it on and follow the instructions. That's it. AEDs are totally safe for anyone to use. They analyse the patient's heart and only deliver a shock when needed. You don't need training to use one, and there's an automated voice that will tell you what to do. Some of the things it'll tell you are to remove their top,
remove clothes from patient's chest,
where to put the pads,
apply pads to patient's bare chest,
when to move away from the patient,
shock advised, stay clear of patient,
and when to keep doing compressions.
No shock advised, begin CPR.
So there you have it. Call, push, shock. Call 000 immediately. Push hard and fast between the nipples and shock if an AED is available.
Remember, when you call 000, the call taker will tell you exactly what to do, and we'll be on our way as quickly as possible.
Thanks for joining Jess and me today to learn CPR and how to use an AED.
These are 2 of the most important things you can possibly do to keep your loved ones safe. Take care.
I'm a pretty ordinary sort of guy, really. Lucky, I suppose. I have a lovely wife, kids. Life's good. Work's pretty stressful, but hey, we get by.
The headlines this morning at 8 o'clock. Manchester teen found guilty of the murder of his teacher. Oil prices soared to a record high, and the Prime Minister announces further NHS cutbacks.
not a problem, no. It's something we can do.
Morning, guys.
Morning, Tim. Morning, Tim.
Oh, by the way, Tim, they need that report tomorrow now, not Friday.
Tomorrow? We'll be here all night. Listen, Nigel, we've got a bit of a rush on that job. They brought the deadline forward to tomorrow now, so I'm going to need those prices by 4 o'clock.
Hi Tim, it's Rachel. I've been trying to get hold of you because we need to go over that report before next Tuesday. If you could give me a call back as soon as possible, thanks.
Cup of tea, anyone?
Hi darling, don't forget you're picking up Mum tonight. She'll be at the station at 6 o'clock. Okay, bye.
Has anyone seen my stapler? Don't forget that meeting at 3, Tim. Tim, are you all right? Tim, what's happening? Tim! Tim! Tim, are you all right? Tim!
Hello, operator.
Hello, ambulance, please.
Hello, ambulance. What's the problem? Can you tell me what's happened?
My colleague's collapsed. I think he's had a heart attack.
Is he conscious?
They want to know if he's conscious.
No, he's not breathing.
Does anyone in the office know CPR?
Does anyone know CPR?
Yes, we're doing it. Tell him to hurry.
Just stay calm. An ambulance is on its way.
So that's it for me, really. You don't expect to have a heart attack and die in the office, do you? But as a matter of fact, over 130,000 people die every year from cardiac arrest, largely because they don't get help in time. Unless you receive a shot from a defibrillator within 3 or 4 minutes, it's pretty much curtains for you.
Don't forget that meeting at 3, Tim. Tim, are you all right? Tim, what's happening? Tim! Tim, are you all right? Tim!
Hello, operator.
Hello, ambulance, please.
Hello, ambulance. What's the problem? Can you tell me what's happened?
My colleague's collapsed. I think he's had a heart attack.
Is he conscious?
They want to know if he's conscious.
No, he's not breathing.
Does anyone in the office know CPR?
Does anyone know CPR?
Yes, we're doing it. Tell him to hurry.
Just stay calm. An ambulance is on its way.
Somebody get the defibrillator. Pull the handle. It tells you what to do.
Begin by removing all clothing from the patient's chest. Place pad exactly as shown in the picture. Analyzing. Shock advised.
Stand back, Becky.
Press the flashing orange button now. Shock delivered.
Tim, can you hear me? Tim, the ambulance is on its way. You're going to be okay. Just hang in there.
It costs less than £1,000 for my company to have a defibrillator, and I owe it my life. You're more likely to die of cardiac arrest than you are from a fire, and yet no one would think twice about having a fire extinguisher in the office. The HeartStart is the world's leading brand of defibrillator and is the trusted choice of healthcare professionals, businesses and leisure industries around the world. You never know. The life it saves could be your own.
A cardiac arrest is obviously the highest priority response, and it will automatically result in at least 2 ambulance resources responding, including an intensive care paramedic. In New South Wales, we generally see the average response time for a cardiac arrest as being about 7 minutes. It's very normal for a patient who is in cardiac arrest to vomit or have some blood around their mouth. Because of concerns around exposure to infectious disease, the recommendations have moved away from providing mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Effective chest compressions and early defibrillation are the mainstays to achieving successful resuscitation. A number of patients when in cardiac arrest can have some clenching of their jaw. That's generally the result of low oxygen. What we would encourage you to do is roll that patient onto their side. Where it's safe to do so, remove any food or dentures from their mouth and then place them back on their back in order for you to start chest compressions. If a patient is cold or grey or blue, you should still commence chest compressions. Some patients can make some sounds, or as you're pressing on their chest, you can force some air out of their lungs, which can make some unusual sounds in the patient's mouth. Again, you should not be put off by those sounds. It's a normal occurrence in cardiac arrest. The tongue can fall back in the mouth, but it cannot be swallowed, and it doesn't pose a significant risk to these patients. The law is very clear that you will not be held liable if you provide CPR to someone who is in cardiac arrest and who needs urgent medical attention.
We love sharing cardiac arrest survival stories with you. Sadly, these are rare and few because only 1 in 10 patients who suffer a cardiac arrest out of hospital will survive.
My name is Mark Vivian and I'm here today because I am a very fortunate survivor of a sudden cardiac arrest. Being here today makes me realise just how very, very fortunate and how blessed I was to be at the school and where I had 4 wonderful, competent colleagues to bring me back to life. Within 2.5 minutes, I was brought back to life. To me, it was a complete shock because I had a pacemaker inserted about 8 or 9 years ago. Like other people, I think, my age, I enjoy good health, I look after myself, I'm quite athletic, and this was a bolt out of the blue. The more defibrillators are out there in the community, the more lives will be saved, because without a shadow of a doubt, a defibrillator saves lives.
We'd been lucky enough to win a senior grade premiership on the Saturday, and this was on the Tuesday, and the players had arranged a bus.
And we're waiting around, and the bus was probably 15-20 minutes late, and in that time between 11 and the bus turning up, Barry walked over.
And I just remember waving to the boys and I collapsed.
So then I went over and I rolled him over, and that's when we knew that there was some real serious issues going on here. And that's when the other 4 boys and Rob, I suppose instinct kicked in a little bit.
I still remember how calm it was. Everyone was just so calm. Everyone just, you know, I was on the phone straight away.
So are you right by him now?
We're right with him, yeah.
Okay, so listen carefully. What we need to do is lay him flat on his back on the ground and remove any pillows.
Someone else jumped on CPR, another person jumped to go get the defib.
I happened to have the keys to where it was locked up, grabbed it, brought it down. At the same time, Zach was bringing one across from the hub. happened to get there first, so I opened it up and it was applied.
The pads are on and we're just waiting.
It's analysing the patient.
Yes.
No one should touch the patient. Analyze.
Analysing.
So everyone stop touching him?
Yeah, everyone.
Good.
Shock advised. Stay clear of the patient.
Stay clear.
Press the flashing orange button.
Yeah.
Shock delivered.
You right? Yeah, it's all right. Just wait there. Don't try and lift your head.
Paramedics are here now.
Okay, are they right there with the patient?
He's talking to us now.
I'll never forget he was purple, and then I just saw like the life come back into him basically, and everyone sort of looked at each other, and then he started talking to us, and I was like...
Couldn't remember a thing, he didn't know what was going on, he thought he...
Everyone was just like, what has just happened?
Oh, they saved Barry's life. Really, it took him about probably 10 minutes to completely recover, but by the time we put him in an ambulance, he knew exactly what was going on. And it was all credit to everyone that arrived before the ambulance did.
The way everyone just got on with the job, and regardless of what was happening, it was very proud moments. I look back on that for the rest of my life to know that I've saved someone's life and was a part of it.
Look, I can't thank them enough, and it's probably etched in their mind, you know, that I'll never forget it. When you get your life saved, it's pretty amazing, and yeah, you just have that little affinity with them, I reckon.
Well, today is World Restart a Heart Day, which highlights the importance of first aid and CPR. These are potentially life-saving skills, and as the Shima family's remarkable story shows, you never know when they might be needed.
Ambulance emergency.
I've got a 19-year-old. We think he's stopped breathing. My husband's just about to start giving CPR.
Okay, you with him now?
Yes, we are.
When Jenny and Heath Shima woke on April 26th, they immediately knew something was seriously wrong.
Heath's alarm went off at 4:30 and I heard a moaning noise. Went straight to John's room. We found John face down on his bed.
Just when I rolled him over, his eyes were rolled back of his head, glazed. I just looked at Jen and then just sort of basically cried, cuddled him.
Somehow Jenny stayed calm and made the call that saved her son's life.
Okay, have you got him on the ground yet? Yes. Now pump the chest hard and fast, at least twice per second and 5 centimetres deep. Yes. Let the chest come all the way up between pumps. Count out loud so I can count with you. 1, 2, 3, 4. That rate. 1, 2, 3, 4.
We've only got the one child and that was by choice, but you know, we just, losing him just wasn't an option.
Okay, the ambulance is with you? Okay, I'll leave you with it.
This is an incredible story of survival. His family did cardiac compressions on him for 24 minutes.
John spent 6 agonising days in an induced coma.
When we got to the hospital, they told us he has sustained some brain damage. He just was a mess and sobbed for hours.
Oh, it's still emotional now. Like, it's... Yeah, to see your son, like, you know, that's just...
When I first saw the photos of me in the coma, it's like, that wasn't me. I'm 19. What 19-year-old has cardiac arrest and dies?
He's since made a strong recovery.
Back at work full time, back playing soccer, back exercising, doing something really I can't do anymore.
It's an absolute miracle.
But most families aren't so lucky. Of the 20,000 Aussies that suffer out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, only 5.7% survive to leave hospital.
Every minute of cardiac arrest, your chances of survival deteriorate by 7 to 10%. We're really trying to encourage people to actually get in, learn CPR.
Anything can go wrong, and then if there's one person around with a first aid certificate, they could end up saving that person's life. I didn't think it was going to happen to me, but it did.
And on Restart a Heart Day, the message is simple.
Call, push, shock. Simply call the ambulance, push on the chest, and if a defibrillator is available, shock the patient before paramedics get there.
I legitimately died, but the CPR and all the ambulance people and all that, my parents saved me. I was dead, and yeah, they brought me back.
Those statistics, 5.7% survival rate. And as a parent,
I don't know that I would have the clarity of thought to think, okay, this is what I've got to do.
It's amazing. And the calmness of the O operators, they are incredible. But I wonder whether it just should be mandatory, like in workplaces, and because I've done CPR a few times since having babies, and even now having done it twice, I still feel foggy about it. Like it should be something we all have to do often.
Also, I think there's no substitute. This is the thing. Like, this is not something where better government services or more money is going to solve the problem.
No.
It's immediate.
And that notion
know what
that
to
hang
do,
left to the ring around and find the person who's done the start a heart class. Everyone should be doing it.
I was playing soccer and I felt really dizzy.
My legs just gave out from under me.
I was turning blue and I had no pulse. And then I had a cardiac arrest.
They tried to revive me and they couldn't.
Someone got a defib.
And started CPR.
The defibrillator restarted my heart.
If those guys hadn't been there, or if they hadn't been able to get a defib, I wouldn't have survived, that's for sure.
Let us take you through the key steps you'll need to take when faced with a cardiac arrest.
Bystanders should call 000 immediately after they identify a patient has collapsed. So they will explain to you how to perform chest compressions and how regular to perform those compressions, and they will provide you support and guidance right through to when the paramedics arrive. And if you don't provide CPR at all, they will surely die. First responders or members of the public should quickly ascertain if there is an automated external defibrillator in close proximity that they can use or that they can apply to the patient for the sake of resuscitating them. The use of defibrillators is absolutely critical to maximise the chance of survival.
The Council of Ambulance Authorities thanks the Michael Hughes Foundation for sharing these videos with you today. We look towards what the future holds and what a heart-safe, healthy community might look like when health and cardiac arrest plays a part in planning communities.
A heart-safe community is a community in which we raise awareness of early access CPR and early access defibrillation. Tatura was chosen as a pilot town for this program, and as a result of that, and as a result of the work we've done here, we've managed to teach over 1,000 people in the population early access CPR and defibrillation, as well as raise awareness of AEDs and in placing them in publicly accessible locations for 24 hours, 7 days a week.
So with my fitness group, we had the paramedics and ACOs come down and teach my clients basic CPR skills. A lot of them weren't aware of that, just that little bit of involvement can help save someone's life.
Through our Lions Club, we've been involved with the ambulance coming to our meetings. We all went home feeling a lot safer and knowing that we may be able to help someone in the future.
They came and did a demonstration on how to do CPR, how to use defib machines. We had people on the floor pumping plastic hearts.
The staff have taken it on board so well, and it's just a great tool for the town.
When we first started this program, it started off with only 3 registered defibs across the town. As of today, we are over 23 registered across the town, as well as 6 of those being 24/7 publicly accessible defibrillators right in the main street.
I think there's not an organisation in the town now that doesn't have access to a defib, and they've been taught to do it.
Whether it's at sporting fields, schools, the supermarket, if anything happens, the town's got it covered. I always thought defib machines were for doctors and nurses, no one else, and little old me can now do it.
The more people in the community know about the heart-safe message and doing CPR and not hesitating in those times of need, the better our out-of-hospital cardiac arrest survival rates will be.
It gets a community working together for such a life-changing thing.
I think it's someone in my family that needed help, that someone would be able to assist them.
I would encourage every town to take this on board. We can all learn, and this is what it's all about, to learn to save lives.
Get on board and do it. It's so important, and you will save lives. We've seen it happen. It's worth it.
I haven't got much of a memory of what happened to me, and whilst I had the cardiac arrest on Christmas morning, the lead up to that I have got very little memory of for about 5 days.
We had been preparing lunch, and so I went out to go and see if the front door was unlocked, and that's when I saw David lying up half in the laundry and half in the hall. I mean, I took one look at him and I thought, I'm not going to get a response. He just looked dead. And so I ran back and I said to Russ, call an ambulance, David's collapsed.
Emergency services came on the line and then gave the description of where we are and what had happened, and headed down the hallway to where I saw David on the floor and my wife doing CPR.
We need to do it at this speed. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I remember thinking, it's Christmas Day. It just can't be happening on Christmas Day. I remember as I was performing the CPR, a part of me was saying, he's such a kind man, like he's such a decent man. I said, this is just not right.
When we drove up to the property, we grabbed all of our gear and walked in, and we saw David lying lifeless on the floor. At that time we saw Andrea performing CPR, very effective CPR mind you. At that point we told them that we'd arrived.
He said, oh, we're here now, we'll take over. And I was like, oh, good. And then it was just a whole lot of work, just everybody working, and the air wing came, we could hear that actually, going over to Tatura Football Park, and we kissed him goodbye and just off he went.
So the Heart Safe Community Initiative is a collaboration between Ambulance Victoria and Heart Foundation Victoria. The tiers of what we do in Heart Safe Community is teaching residents all about CPR and how to defibrillate.
You know, when you perform CPR on a mannequin, of course you want to do it properly, but when it's a person and a loved one, it was like I was really pushing life into him, like I was willing life into him. You know, strangely, if you've done the CPR, it just happens and it works. That's the amazing part.
Teaching Andrea that day about how easy it is to do CPR and how very few steps are involved in doing CPR, she was able to play a huge factor in David's survival.
It means you're doing something rather than just not being able to do anything.
All I can say is I'm just so grateful for what they did, that their training that they'd been through with CPR both helped them in my recovery because they knew exactly what to do. So CPR training came to the fore, for which I'm so grateful.
I can't recommend it enough. It's so simple. If you can offer that gift, then give it. That's what I would suggest.
Hello, I'm Kevin McSweeney, the current chair of the Michael Hughes Foundation. The foundation was established as a legacy to Michael, who was just 38 years of age when he passed away from sudden cardiac arrest. For the last 5 years, the Michael Hughes Foundation team has been working hard to tackle the devastating impact of cardiac arrest in the community. Our programs include life-saving training in CPR and the use of defibrillators. We've worked with schools, government, business, youth and sporting organisations. It's our aim to turn bystanders into first responders in all medical emergencies. Our work includes the implementation of the cardiac chain of survival. This approach creates a coordinated response from bystanders and medical professionals. We are strongly supporting the framework of heart-safe communities. We are partnering with leading property companies, Pace and Sekisui House Australia, to roll out this program at their groundbreaking Melrose Park project. Melrose Park is one of Sydney's biggest urban renewal projects, including 6,000 apartments, parks and public facilities, and a new town centre known as Melrose Park Central. The Heart Safe program will include the rollout of defibrillators across the project. It will also include training residents as first responders, an app which notifies key people in the event of a cardiac event, and the integration of the defibrillator program into the Building Management Emergency Plan. We're excited to be working with Pace and Sekisui House on this life-saving project. We also appreciate the opportunity to share with you our work on Restart a Heart Day 2020.
Around the world, 3 million people die from cardiac arrest every year. Survival rates vary from as low as 1% in some places to 25% in others. That means, in a city of 1 million people, it's the difference between only 5 lives saved and 125 lives saved. The first 10 minutes can mean the difference between life and death. How can we help save more lives? In the first few minutes, a bystander must call for help. This starts the chain of survival. First, a bystander calls for help. Then, a dispatcher assists with telephone CPR. Receiving help from the dispatcher to identify a cardiac arrest and coach CPR performance increases survival. Chance of survival after good CPR is 3 times better than for poor CPR. High-performance CPR and defibrillation by first responders has been shown to double survival. Paramedics provide CPR and advanced life support. Well-trained paramedics who use CPR feedback devices also double survival. Post-resuscitation care then takes place at the hospital. The greatest life-saving potential is in the first links in the chain. But it takes more than just the chain of survival. The chain of survival needs support by strong leadership, systematic refresher training, a quality improvement system, and most importantly, a culture of excellence. This is the frame of survival. Around the world, in places where the chain of survival has been well implemented, we've seen survival from cardiac arrest increase by 5 times. And these places are still showing steady improvement. Together, by implementing the chain of survival, we can help save more lives.
And that brings us to the end of our virtual event today, our Restart a Heart Day 2020. I hope you enjoyed it. These events are not possible without a lot of support and commitment from a wide range of people. I want to particularly thank again our ambulance services from Australia, New Zealand and PNG. Thank you for your commitment to Restart a Heart Day and your commitment to improving out-of-hospital cardiac arrest survival rates. I also want to thank our experts who provided us with a great range of new information, and particularly our experts who shared CPR and AED practices with us. I would also like to thank our patron, the Governor-General of Australia and the Governor-General of New Zealand. Thank you for your commitment to this program also. These events would not be possible without support from our sponsors. We have had amazing support from sponsors this year. Thank you for that, and we hope to see you all again in 2021 for Restart Heart Day then. I'd like to thank the CAA team. Thanks for putting together a great program under these difficult times and circumstances. And finally, if you feel you want to share this with friends and colleagues, please do so. A link will be available on the CAA website for you to do so. And remember the key message: call, push, shock, save a life. Thank you and stay safe.
We're proud to be able to bring you a live CPR and AED training session hosted by Ambulance Tasmania. To join the session, please download the app and have your code ready. Follow the instructions on the screen and be ready to join the session.